The OSWAs are all finished. They're done and dusted. It's over. We had the winner ceremony on Saturday, and all the information is shared due until next year. Except we generate a lot of data, and we generate a lot of feedback, and we generate a lot of questions. But I've covered them in the past. Instead, what I'm gonna do tonight to kinda close out the OSWAs is just kinda have a session for me to unpack things a little bit, to reflect, to share some confessions with you of a sort, and of course, share how the OSWAs has affected me in my whiskey year in 2023. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see you in a second. Hello, all whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. I hope you're all sitting comfortably. I hope that you're planning on, well, perhaps you're picking it up live, which is fantastic. Perhaps you're picking it up in the replay. In either scenario, thank you. It's wonderful to have your support, but I hope you've found time to get your feet up and pour something so you can sip along with the rest of us. Yes, I kind of teased this on last week's vPub. Before we finished up, I suggested to you that there may be cause or need or desire for me to do a kind of closeout session on OSWA's kind of tidy up for 2023. I was immediately a wee bit regretful because I realized that the OSWA's it goes on for quite a few weeks. It kicks off in September. Public voting closes in October, and it's early November by the time that we sit down and share what the results are. It's quite a few weeks of your whiskey year. But so much activity happened, so much feedback, so much discussion that I just felt like, no, it needs to be done. Let's sacrifice a vPub session. Let's sacrifice a Thursday night, but put a bit of an Aqvavitae spin on it. Make it a bit of a personal thing for me. Maybe let you look under the hood a little bit more, than give you more information than we would on the ceremony night, and cover some quite basic topics. What has been nice is that we're now in our third year, the concept, the reasons for the concept, and how everything works is starting to be much more clearly understood. And I know that it would take a wee while for that to happen, because when we use the word awards to describe this initiative, people think about a model that they imagine, whether it's in a whiskey context or otherwise, a way that awards are given out, and we kind of do things a wee bit differently there. The OSWAs is a democratic thing. It is a public vote, a public poll, of course it is, but there's a hybrid model here. And at the start of the process, before anything goes out to public voting, the reviewers, the commentators, that is the entire team of contributors, get together in order to create those nominations in the first place. We need to take our place. I'm going to take you through all of that. I'm going to take you through the effect that it's had on me, and I'm going to share some little facts and things with you throughout tonight. I'm going to try and keep it neat, because a lot of you are aware that this weekend is a very, very busy weekend. This is the Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend. So there are dozens and dozens and dozens of you. In fact, for the first time this year, I can actually say there are hundreds of you, or at least there are over 100 of you. How do I know? Well, just the buses, the coaches that we've booked to take everyone from the festival event to the meal afterwards is 100 seats, and the buses are full. So if there's anybody else trying to get a lift, your luck's out, I'm afraid. But what it does mean is that there's going to be a lot less pressure on the taxi service and the trains and the buses and things from everyone leaving the festival at the same time, because we're all going on those buses. So hopefully, if you do need to make your own arrangements after the festival, it's going to be a wee bit easier for you. But there's loads of you in town. It's exciting. So that means I'm going to attempt, despite wanting to speak about quite interesting things tonight. I'm going to try and keep it a wee bit neat. It's just a solo session. It's just me discussing this tonight. I hope you find that's okay. And I'll try and keep it as interactive as I can throughout tonight. So pitch in, keep the discussion going, keep it colourful, keep it polite, of course. But honestly, ask anything. There's nothing to hide and there's nothing off limits, of course. Anyway, talking about interactive, while everybody's getting settled, while everybody's tuning in and sorting out their screens and their feet, where they're going to put their feet up and pad their cushions out and things, I'm going to jump into the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Good to see you all. Good to have you here for another Thursday night for quite a specific, maybe a wee bit esoteric topic. I don't know. But it's nice to welcome you all. I really do still look forward to my Thursday nights, and along with that continue. Fernando's here saying evening, Roy. And he's saying good evening to Whiskey Novice as well, which means Jim Ingram is in. He must not be coming over to Glasgow until tomorrow. Looking forward to meeting you here, Jim. And Fernando, it's nice to welcome you in. Hillswood is here saying evening, Roy. Good to see you. I hope Andy's with you, and I hope you're both keeping very well. Jimmy Jazz is here. Of course he is. Good evening, Aqvavitae. Hope you survive all of November. All I need to do is get this weekend's going to be super busy, Jimmy, and then everything kind of kicks back into a normal cadence, normal pace again. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm actually looking forward to taking some time off. And I know that it's silly because we've been away on holiday, but anybody that goes on a family holiday when you've got a young family, they'll tell you they know it's not really restful, right? I'm looking for things to slow down a wee bit, and but it's been great fun. It's been fantastic. It's good to have you. And Whiskey Novice is here. Come away from the bins, you Hallion. Terrific. That's a wee private joke based on Jim's skit. There was a skit submitted that we decided not to use because it was completely branded, and it was Jim's skit, and it was really funny. It really was just great fun. It was very Aqvavitae and Ralfy branded, and we don't want we're the hosts, of course, we're up front, right? But we don't want to kind of reinforce any specific brand. We want to make this a very collaborative thing. So I went back to Jim and asked if he could consider modifying it or submitting another skit or whatever. But what happened is that we did share it in the end. I put together an entire video of all the Online Scotch Whisky Awards vignettes for 2023, and I maybe do that going forward, just in a single little video so that everybody can see all the channels. It doesn't show you everybody that contributed, of course, because it's 65, but I think about half of them submitted a video vignette for 2023, which was amazing because it gave us that real sense of the kind of global reach of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Especially when we see people speaking in different languages and things like that. It's just amazing to see that reach. So it was an interesting thing to do, and it meant that I could add Jim's funny little skit at the end, and his is the bonus skit at the end. It's worth watching. It's on the Aqvavitae channel. If you're interested, Alistair Gray's here. Good evening, and at Barflies, 2 sleeps to Glasgow Whisky Festival. Indeed, Alistair, you're coming down for that event. Can't wait to finally shake your hand and raise a glass together, buddy. It'll be great. Pedro Meneses is in, or Meneses, because he's in Brazil. Good evening, Barflies. Good evening, Aqvavitae. Good to see you, buddy. I hope you're doing well. Peter Box is here. Hello, everyone in Aqvavitae. Peter, always great to welcome you, and I hope you're keeping well. And Multi-Mission in Belgium is saying, I'll never be able to watch a recycled review in the same way I can. Again, it's a little bit of a joke based on the vignette I've just mentioned to you. Ross Brereton is here saying, good evening, Aqvavitae and all. And Island Hopper Stewart is in saying, good evening, Roy. Congrats on the success of the OSWAs. On another topic, please provide more detail of where you went on your trip around Scotland, and did you do any island hopping? No, we didn't. We rushed for a ferry to Rassie, and they had just switched to their winter timetable, and we missed the ferry, and it was, I think, 2 hours or maybe 3 hours to the next one, which would have been fine. We could have still made it, but the last ferry back meant that we couldn't eat on Rassie. So the only island hopping we did was by bridge over to Skye, Stuart. Listen, it was fantastic. I don't want to, there's nothing really missed there. It would have been wonderful to take my family and things over to Rassie. That would have been amazing to see. But the holiday was fantastic. We were treated with brilliant weather. I mentioned it last week. Just looking through photos this week of that holiday, and it was just a terrific just seeing all the kind of colours change, everything starting to turn olive, the mountains and everything starting to kind of go much more muted in colour, start rust colours coming into the mountains and things. And then the trees all just kind of, the fireworks, all the different colours of trees, and just fabulous. Really good for mental health. Julian Rickman is saying, evening, Roy. And barflies. Roy and Ralfy, what a great OSWAs again. Well done and thanks. I'll be honest with you, Julian, the reason I decided to just go ahead with this topic tonight is because I really believe that it was a good event and it was very well received. It was much better, better received than I was expecting. And I'll get to that. I'll get to the reasons for my pessimism a wee bit later. Alan Smith is here. Don't say going to be finished before 12, lol. Do you know, I've got a tasting tomorrow. Glasgow Whisky Festival on Saturday. Then obviously we've got the restaurant at Aqvavitae, and then over to the Bon Accord on Saturday night. And I'm hosting a tasting on Sunday. Then it's the Glasgow Whisky Club on Monday night. So the intention, let's say, Alan, tonight is to keep it neat. I can't remember the last time I finished a vPub before midnight. That would mean a 2 or 15 minutes vPub. Let's see. What's crazy is that I think I'm running too late, and it kind of stresses me out a wee bit sometimes. And I realise that most of you don't mind. The Road to Drama saying, good evening, everyone, and good evening, Aqvavitae. Glad to finally make it to a live stream. Thanks for the great work on the OSWAs. The Road to Drama, if this is the first time I'm welcoming you in, my friend, I'll raise this glass and say cheers to you. Welcome. I'm missing some support here in the lounge. MC Drama joined the Aqvavitae Barflies today. Thank you so much, MC Drama, and so did Herben. Now, Herben, I'm going to butcher your second name, but it looks like Leoverk. It's my best attempt, and hopefully I'm getting the Herben thing okay at the start. I saw Alan Smith and you having a discussion about how I can sometimes take things a wee bit to heart, and I think the whole OSWA's process has affected me a wee bit adversely over recent weeks. But I don't want anybody to worry about that, because it's fine. It's because it's a passion project. It's because we're serious about it. We try to do the best that we can and everything. And I've always been a wee bit of a sensitive soul, haven't I? So, we try and get through. Pedro Meneses is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 7 months. And he said that the time flies with the Barflies. Nice one, Pedro. Grainer Malt is saying, good day, Aqvavitae. I wish I could be at the Glasgow Whisky Festival. We'd love to have you there as well, James. It would be amazing to have you, but I'm sure you'll get there soon. And Whisky with Molly is celebrating being a member for 25 months. I can tell you that these guys are all celebrating being Barfly members, and that's because they're channel members. They've clicked that join button on YouTube, and they keep everything ad-free while they get access to the wee Barfly badges, of course, but all the whiskey-themed channel emoji to colour up your chat and the live chat if you're in here. But more than anything, they keep it advert-free. My funding still comes from Patreon, patreon.com. It's a whole separate community over there, and the reason that I exist, the reason that this whole thing exists, and they fund the OSWAs as well. They didn't choose to do that. Ralfy and I chose to do that, but that's how everything is funded. The Barflies is amazing. It's good fun, and it keeps everything ad-free. A wee dram come in from Stephen Gibson, catching up to show my appreciation for an amazing content. Mr. Duff, Stephen Gibson, thank you very much. It might be the first time I've mentioned your name. I feel like it could be, but regardless, I thank you for your dram, my friend, and the kind words. Cheers. France G, that looks like a new name as well, who's also joined the Barflies, but he's bought me a dram to say hello, Aqvavitae. Thank you for your OSWA efforts and the transparency. I usually catch the replay, but tonight I'm listening live as a wrap up at work and commute home. Franz, I'm not sure where you are, but it looks like, well, it's come through in American dollars, so I imagine it's in the States. And I imagine that makes sense if you're commuting home. Drive carefully, my friend, and thank you very much for the dram. Whiskey Wolf has also bought me a dram to say good evening, Roy. Ready to whip some squirrels. That's Jeff's closeout. Anybody that didn't stay till the post credits for the OSWAs on Saturday, there was a really cool, funny, tongue-in-cheek, almost kind of a continuation from 2022 where Jim Whiskey Novice did the Over 60s Walking Association thing, tongue-in-cheek, and Jeff at G Whiskey did the online squirrel whipping association or something like that. Regardless, it was really funny and very typically Jeff. Thanks very much, Whiskey Wolf. Cheers to you. Connor Williams is saying, bring on Glasgow Whisky Festival, celebrating being a barfly for 18 months. And Mark celebrating being a member for 37 months. Wow. Jimmy Legs bought me a dram. Jimmy, good to see you in. I've always found a few Guinnesses removes your sensitive side. Yeah. Only two. It only took two, Jimmy, didn't it? Thank you for the jam, buddy, and it's nice to have you in here. And Eric Cunliffe in Canada as well, saying, hey, Roy and community, miss you all and can't wait to get back to Glasgow. The OSWAs were amazing again this year. Thanks, Roy. Off to work shortly, but we'll enjoy on replay. I know you have to work in the evenings, Eric, but it's nice to have you in here. Eric Cunliffe in Canada and Jimmy Legg, cheers. David Evans celebrating being a member for 43 months. And my friend Brian, Kilco Whiskey Musings, been a member for 44 months. David is saying, OSWAs were amazing. Keep going. Thank you so much, David. And Kilco O'Brien is saying, how have I not been to Scotland yet? It'll happen for you, my friend. Whiskey finds you. Whiskey finds ways to make it happen. Okay, listen, I'll try and keep it interactive tonight, but let's clip on a quick piece of housekeeping. It's festival weekend. If you don't know what the arrangements are, it's probably too late to tell you, but as I've already mentioned, the bus is now full. If you're trying to get a seat on the bus, I'm sorry, we just can't make it 3 buses. Last year was a 72-seater bus. We upgraded to 2 50-seater buses and they're full. But regardless, you'll be able to make your own way after the festival to join us for dinner at Akbar's. The restaurant is not full. They can take more people. So if you want to join us for something to eat and line your stomach before a few nightcaps round at the Bon Accord on Saturday night after the festival, that's our plan. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. It's a very, very exciting time. It's a super efficient way for me to meet so many of you. The only thing I'll say in advance is that the only regret I sometimes have is that I meet so many people, forget everyone's names, of course, but I meet so many people, you don't often get a time to really have an in-depth discussion or conversation. But it's good to start things off. It's good to shake hands. It's good to raise a glass. It's good to finally meet so many kind folk. Ryan Sutherland saying, hope to catch up on Saturday. Me too, Ryan. That would be terrific. Just if we just get a wee bit of time to walk around together for a bit, that would be amazing. And Rob Halford is saying, want to quickly thank people for the kind words from Saturday, spending this vPub packing samples and my suitcase for the long whiskey weekend. Aqvavitae, you put on an incredible show, another great year. So Rob Halford is the guy that we spoke about that's helped me so much this year. Not only just making it look shinier and slicker and better, but preparing a lot of assets in the background. And all those people choices, the number crunching and the counting of all those wildcard entries, Rob Halford did that for me this year. And it took so much burden off my back. There's no way I could have done it, not anyway as good as it went without the help of Rob. And of course, I can't say Rob without saying Chuck Watkins over in Colorado as well for taking care of the daily grind of our social media, all the messages that come backwards and forwards and constantly scheduling content and reminding people and letting people know and everything, building up awareness. Fantastic to Rob and Chuck. Fantastic. Celebrating being a member of the Barfly for 43 months is Lee J. Brown. Lee J, I'll get to see you this weekend as well. The only other thing to say is a wee apology on behalf of everyone at Dramface. The editorial team would like to apologise. I woke up this morning getting the kids ready to go out the door to school and things like that and realised there was no Dramface. We have content waiting and it just wasn't built and ready to go out. It was just a blip, and I think that's the first time that it's happened in that way. Anyway, regardless, to make it up to you, of course, we'll pick up and the content will kick off again from tomorrow again. But also we'll be putting out extra content on Saturday. We'll be putting out a feature piece. So tomorrow is a fantastic little insight into Canadian whiskies, 2 specific Canadian whiskies that I bet you've never heard of. But Brodie and Angus both have a chance to review and give us some insight into what's happening in Canada. And then on Saturday, we do a feature piece on peat and sustainability. You might remember in our vPub, the last Peat Fest vPub that we did, I talked a little bit about the sustainability of peat and the global use of Scottish peat and Scottish malted barley, and I questioned it a little bit. The piece on Saturday for Dramface goes into even more depth than that and literally asks, is peat sustainable? I need to give Dramface a lot more attention going forward now that the OSWAs are out of the way. This weekend, the festival will be out of the way as well. it's going to be nice to settle back in and focus on the fantastic work that the team at Dramface are doing and working out how we can level up there. Jimmy Legacy and having a Springbank 10 in honour of you all and the OSWAs. Also, I wanted to have one. Of course you did, Springbank 10. Listen, I'm not doing that tonight, Jimmy. I'm not sipping through. I considered just kind of digging out the OSWA winners that I had and sipping them and letting you know. But no, what I'm going to do tonight as part of my confessions is I'm going to share bottles with you that I would not have purchased if it wasn't for the OSWAs. Now, what am I saying there? That the OSWAs is all about generating the sales for the whiskey industry. Is all about generating buzz? Is it all about kind of moving whiskey bottles and things? And I'm just one of them that's gone off and, all FOMO and things. I think all of these things are a wee bit overthought and overspoken sometimes. It wasn't FOMO. It wasn't a fear of missing out. I was inspired to buy these things because you seem to like them. And if it's me, and if it's what I do on this channel, and if it's me trying these things in order to share my opinion and my take with you, I open them here, uncork them here on the vPub. Sometimes I use them in blind challenges and things like that. I enjoy them as the bottle goes through, and then eventually they make it into the recycling, and I kind of give you a closeout and a score and that kind of thing. If I'm going to do that and my opinions are going to be meaningful in any way, then I have to know what these whiskies are that you're talking about. It's nice if I find my own whiskies and discover my own things and bring you a hot take of an exciting whiskey that I'm enjoying, of course. That's nice. I can share that with you. But it's nice for me to listen to you as well. The OSWAs are yet another example of a bi-directional dynamic. We will be touching upon that tonight. So I've got some bottles here. I'm going to share with you how the OSWAs has affected me in my purchasing this year. And I'll open them with and break up the flow of tonight with that. I've got some cues and things to help me. But let's just get on with it. Let's get on with talking about, we're 20 minutes in. I always try and kind of kick things off about the 20-minute mark by just starting with my first confession, if you like, or my first claim about the OSWAs. And that is that I'm not sure what your take on the OSWAs is, but I believe that the OSWAs are not aimed at you. And I don't think they're aimed at me either. Why do I say that? Well, a couple of things. The first thing is that the OSWAs, the design of the OSWAs, everything about it is in order to celebrate what we believe to be the best in whiskey. Now, that's clumsy in some ways, because if you say the best in whiskey, that could literally be the best malt whiskey that you've tasted throughout the previous year. But that's very likely to be some kind of unobtainium, some kind of really special unicorn bottling. It's likely to be something that's not really affordable or something that's not easy to recommend to people because they're not going to be able to get it. So are we talking about the best in whiskey? But yes, we still are talking about the best in whiskey, but it has to be contextualized into the shape of the best whiskey you can buy, the best whiskey you can buy again, and the best whiskey you can recommend to a friend. That's what the Online Scotch Whisky Awards are about. And before anybody mentions Springbank, we will also get to that tonight as well. The other reason for the OSWAs, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, we hope is to speak on behalf of a community and share what the people who call themselves enthusiasts, geeks, aficionados, connoisseurs, whiskey botherers, flavour chasers, however you self-refer to yourself, maybe just a whiskey fan, a whiskey drinker. We want to represent what you are actually enjoying because we believe that there are patterns, and I think the OSWAs demonstrate those patterns amongst enthusiasts. They are not there to tell everybody what the most popular, best-selling whiskies are. The industry already knows that. What we want to do is feed back to the industry what we're genuinely loving. I think the OSWAs does a good job of that. However, When I say the OSWAs are not aimed at you and they're not aimed at me, that's true. So much of the negativity that we get, by the way, we get so little negativity, it's almost overwhelmingly positive. But when we do get criticism, what you tend to find is that it's from a very narrow perspective. It tends to be from people who are saying, it doesn't speak to me. But it wouldn't take much of a leap for them to just consider their whiskey journey not so long ago and how it would be super valuable. But I will still argue further and say, I don't think there's anyone that the OSWAs can't reach. Even the most seasoned, the most well-heeled in terms of whiskey experiences, whiskey aficionado can take something from the 2023 and the previous OSWAs. Whether it's through the nominations, whether it's through the process, or whether it's through the people's choice, whether it's through the discussion around them, there's something going to be planted. Somebody is going to take something out of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. We can't focus it towards the people who are very, very experienced in whiskey, nor can we focus it completely to people who have never touched a glass of whiskey. We have to open it up to the entire Scotch whisky community and structure it in order to harness that information, which is why a lot of it is generalized, why a lot of it is simplified. It's not pointed at the individual, it's pointed at the community. It's not meant to represent an individual. None of us can have our votes. None of us can have our winners. None of us can have our nominees. None of us can have our picks coming at the top of the people's choice. Not guaranteed, not every time. But what we can guarantee, and I'll show you tonight, that the OSWAs are representative of everyone. And they are pointed to as many people in our community as they possibly can be. So if you are wondering why things are so, if you can consider the we and us instead of the I and me, it might help you process a little bit and work out why it's done in such a way. Mikey is in tonight. Good to see you, Mikey. Evening, Aqvavitae. Evening, Ollie, saying it's always brilliant to pick you up, buddy. I don't think you're coming to Glasgow this weekend. I would have heard about it. Jimmy Legg is saying awards mean nothing. OSWAs included, but getting whiskey people together for any reason makes it worthwhile. I know that's a positive comment, Jimmy. I would suggest that the OSWAs are more than finding a winner. The more data that we are generating and the more transparent that we are and the more that we display and share that data. It's interesting, I got an email in from someone. I've not been able to respond to it yet because it was quite in depth, but they've been taking data and processing it in such a way that I never even thought of. Because we're being transparent with all of these all these stats and figures and how much the percentage of the vote and all of these things that we are generating data for people to process as well. What does that mean? It betrays patterns, it betrays behavior, trends, preferences. Chris Prolick is saying, I'm looking forward to the Arden 14 coming back in some time. Yeah, I picked that one up as well. Listen, for as long as I've been speaking to Andy, I've been bullying him about the Arden 14, and the answer has always been within the next year or two. I hoped it was going to be a wee bit earlier than that. But more than anything, whenever it does come out, Chris, what I would like it to be is refill focused, refill forward. I don't want it to be casky, fresh first fill this. And I would like it to be at 14 years old, I would like it to focus on being a bit of a refill. Dave Barnes is in saying, finally get to watch live and not pick up on the London Underground. Dave, it's brilliant to welcome you in, and thank you for trying to pick up on the Underground as well when you do. Alistair Gray saying, too many paid awards in the whiskey industry. The OSWAs is unique and awesome. You know, I'm going to back that up because I have still to find somebody to come forward to me and say, here, Roy, here's another example of community awards that follow a similar philosophy as the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. It doesn't need to be in whiskey or even drinks or food or anything. It could be in tech or it could be in any kind of interest. I'm really struggling to find it, and I wonder why that is. Simon Ray saying, wishing everyone going to the Whiskey Festival a great weekend. Sorry to not be joining you all. Simon, I know you've been here in the past, and I know you'll be here again, buddy. Thanks for the kind words, and we will see you in Glasgow soon. David Lorenko is saying, here tasting the best Scotch. Most people place the Springbank halfway, but most people can't do this to vote as to vouch for their perceived quality value in the first place is well deserved. So this is the thing. People think that nobody can buy Springbank 10. It's not true. It's not true. The reason that got voted to the top was not people saying, oh, well, I hear that that's good, I'll give that a vote. That's just really rude to thinking about that's what people would be like in that concept, in that context. I think people have got a lot of choice to vote for different things. They're not just going to waste a vote on something that they've never tried and vote for Springbank 10 because everyone else is talking about it. Okay, some people may do that, I don't know, but it seems odd to me, especially when they have the ability to put their wild card in. So I know that that's not what you mean, David, but I think that once people make an effort to get hold of Springbank 10, and I know for a lot of you out there, it's really hard because it is being abused right now, especially through really quite opportunistic retail and supply chain. It's awful. Depending on where you are in the world, you're having to pay through the nose. But the distillery is not benefiting from that. That is bad actors, people charging what they can rather than what they should. And it's frustrating, and we need to call it out. However, in the UK especially, and in Europe, people are able to buy Springbank 10 because even at auction now, they're only getting £1 or £2 or £4 or £5 more than retail. It's only a matter of time before people are fed up trying to make a couple of pounds in a bottle of Springbank. It's going to come back to us. Fernando is saying, for me, the OSWAs are a game changer when it comes to good whiskey. A good buy or a great sensory experience. The nominees and people's choices are the key. I agree with you, Fernando. We're going to touch on that hopefully. And Justin Wan is saying there aren't any other awards like this because the whiskey is shared experience, but in a small enough community that's manageable. In theory, they can do it in film, but imagine the scale. For me, data, says Jimmy Legg, and whiskey are exact opposites. Whiskey is analog in the best way. Whiskey and its people are all about how it feels, and I'm generally against feelings. Cheers, Jimmy. I hear you. I hear you. People are buying whiskey based on feelings. People are enjoying whiskey based on feelings, and people are impassioned when they get something that they love and they talk about it and share it. I think the OSWAs do represent what people are enjoying. And I think that they'll get better over time as we build more data. Okay. If I share with you then what did the OSWAs do to me in 2023? Well, they made me quite tired. There was a lot of work. And as we expand things going forward, we've got 65 contributors this year. Some of you are very, very, you've done it before, you're experienced, you understand, very, very easy. You don't need much. There's really little communication goes backwards and forwards, if any, and you just go in, you know the drill and you know what to do. But there's a lot of people that are stepping in and, they're stepping in with trust, and they need a bit of reassurance. They need a bit of guidance on what it's about and what to do. And we do that. So we have to speak to, so the more and more contributors that we bring on board, the more workload that there's going to be. Even if it's simple things like just kind of making sure that they're looked after and credited and they get a video vignette and all of these things. But that's okay. That doesn't matter. We're up to the task. It's going to be bigger. It's going to get bigger. The workload is probably going to get a wee bit bigger as well. But look at 2023. Last year I had Graham Brown helping me. It was amazing. This year I had Chuck Watkins and Rob Halford, two people stepping forward to help to spread the load a wee bit lighter again. So as the workload gets bigger, there's other people willing to step forward and support. Trusted people. This is amazing. This is fantastic. But it was a lot of work. And there is a lot of, I don't want to say pressure. There's a lot of desire from me and Ralfy to do a good job, to give you something that you want to watch, that you want to participate in, and that you want to enjoy. We want to make it valid, and we want to make it robust. It doesn't need to be professional. It doesn't need to be slick, but it needs to be watchable. The OSWAs had an effect on my mood this year, and I learned a lesson from it, because I think in the past I've been able to prepare myself and fortify myself for the obvious negativity that's going to come, and it's been fine in the past. I've been able to just brush it off. This year, I think I struggled a wee bit more with it, and it taught me a wee lesson. After the Saturday went so well, after it was very well received, very positive, despite the results and everything, I relaxed a lot, and I learned a big lesson out of it. So I need to remember to be patient, to remember that not everybody thinks the same way that I do, and nor should they. And every time that there's a criticism or some feedback that might be perceived as being negative, we can use that as a way to make the platform, the whole initiative, much more positive. But what I actually want to talk about, what the OSWAs did to me in 2023, was it influenced my purchasing. Let's pick up the first bottle. You guys talked about this. You guys put this in the People's Choice Award. You guys brought this to my attention. So much chatter about it, so many people talking about it, that fuel to the fire of 2023 finally being the year, possibly, of the blend. This is James Eadie's trademark X. I'm going to hold that on the hope that the camera can work out. It's going to be tough because it's a clear see-through label, isn't it? Let's try that. It's actually quite a difficult label to see and read, even in real life, just because it's that screen print type. But this is a blended Scotch whisky. So that means that it's a mix of malt and grain. This is a 45.6% ABV bottling, which is exactly 80 degrees proof. In old money, of course, you're going to take 45.6, and you're going to make that 91.2, aren't you? That's American proof. But in old money, 80 proof was 45.6% ABV, and that's what this wee blend is. Just uncorked it, so let's have a wee go. Why am I interested in blends? Why am I interested in probably one of the lesser interest categories? Well, because honestly, as malt prices go up and up and up and up, it kind of makes sense that a lot of us are going to be looking for the blend category to up its game somewhat, to bring us good, anxiety-free, sippable, drinkable whiskies at a decent price. But we don't want more of the same. We don't want more of what we've been seeing for decades in the blend sector. We don't want whiskey that's made to be as consistent as possible, to be as, let's be honest, as profitable as possible, and to be sold in as many cases as possible. What we want is something that maybe takes flavor first. This nose is like a blend straight away. It's a neck pour. It's straight out the bottle. Sweet powdered sugar and pink bubblegum. A wee bit of dusty malt and kind of shortbread biscuits. Sweetness again. There's almost like a beer note, like just when you stick your face in a pint of beer or something, you get, and I don't mean hops, I don't mean a bitterness of hops. Yeah, it's just the malt. I think it's just the malt, the grain. Sweet, a wee bit floral. So because of the pink bubblegum, I'm now thinking of kind of pink flowers and things like that. This is all it's a pink whiskey. Let's have a wee sip. Quite approachable. I think there's a good chunk of malt in this. Don't know the stats on this one. I know that Maclean's knows. They tell you that it's a 70-30 split. This one I'm not sure of at all, but the mouthfeel was much better than I expected. It nosed as if it was going to be a wee bit thin, and it's not big and thick and heavy and oily. There's not too much body to this. It's kind of light to medium body whiskey, but it's more viscous than I was expecting. It's got a little bit of soft, sweet spice, a little bit of ginger. The floral thing is on top. Very light, very easy whiskey. This was another one of those blends that's coming out there at a very, very good price. This is now taking the place of maybe 5 years ago we were able to go in and buy the majority of core range malt whiskies at £30 to £35. It's sad, but those days are gone now. The core range stuff that we're sipping today, we're lucky to get it sub 40 now. It tends to be 45 to £50 and upwards. Honestly, it can be around that order. So there's that gap appeared there. The blends are still around at £20 to £25 at best for the high-end stuff, and sub £20. I'm speaking about the UK here, of course, because people won't pay any more for the brand that they buy and drink. They just won't. They're very, very fickle. So these prices have to stay very, very tight. But that's left a space in between, a space for whiskies like this to exist. Not getting any smoke. This is a very clean, easy, slightly spirity, slightly grain forward, easy drinking blended whiskey. It's the type of thing that you'd be quite happy to mix if you wanted to, but it's also a tidy little sipper too. Where I would think that this is going to really show its strength is if you grabbed a Glenlivet 12, Glenfiddich 12, a Glenlivet Founders Reserve, any kind of non-age statement, 40% ABV, entry-level whiskey off the shelf at a similar price point, malt whiskey, and sip them side by side. I think this would have more dimension to it. I think I maybe do that in the future. I think it would have more grip and flavour, more complexity, just because of the way it's been put together and that higher ABV. A decent sipper, a decent wee blend. And that's the first of 4 bottles I'm going to share with you tonight that the OSWAs motivated me to go and buy. Let's talk about motivation. I don't mean FOMO. I don't mean a fear of missing out. We are talking about FOMO, and it's valid to talk about FOMO. It very much is valid to talk about it because we hear or we see new whiskies, or somebody else talking about something that's exciting, and the OSWAs celebrating things that the community seem to enjoy. And there's a danger there. There's a danger that we can succumb to or let ourselves be weakened by something that we should rationalize, and that is the fear of missing out. Whiskey comes to us. There's so much whiskey right now that we need to develop skills in order to not suffer from buying whiskey simply because we feel like we'll miss out if we don't. But we also need to accept that buying whiskey is pleasurable. And if we don't use those friends and those new releases and the OSWAs and various different reviews and whatever it is that we're into in order to inspire our purchases, then we're probably just going to go out into the landscape and buy blind. We're going to spend that money anyway. So there is a genuine place to talk about fear of missing out and FOMO, but every time that you're inspired to buy a whiskey is not FOMO. It is not that. Buying whiskey and enjoying whiskey and sharing whiskey and doing whatever we enjoy doing in our whiskey hobby is meant to be a pleasurable thing. And it very, very often is. And if we can rationalize our actions, we shouldn't be suffering from FOMO. I've gone and bought James Eadie's Trademark X in order for me to get to know it. So that when any time I speak about blended whiskies, when any time I speak about whiskies at that price point, any time that contextually it's appropriate, I can speak from a position of experience. And hopefully that can help you a wee bit in your purchasing decisions and help you rationalize FOMO. We're now spoiled for choice in the blend section in our specialist retailers. There are whiskies that were never there before. Does that mean that everybody's going to run out and buy them all and try them all? No. It just simply means we've got more choice. And the malt sector, who are quite happily marching up the price ladder, need to be wary of that, because whiskey drinkers today in 2023 are much, much more fickle, flighty, and promiscuous than we were ever in the past. It's rare for us to stick to brands as enthusiasts these days. Bud Jenkins is saying, I'm more worried about FOBU, fear of being uninformed. That's brilliant, Bud. Whether it's through you getting involved in YouTube communities, online review sites, your local whiskey clubs, drinking with friends, whatever it is, you can inform yourselves. And the more people that's at the coalface, that's at the task of informing themselves, the more valuable the information that they've got to share. Lolander is saying, did anybody read two Whiskey Brothers reviews of Aqvavitae Uncorking releases? Oh no, they didn't seem impressed by them. I haven't even heard of two Whiskey Bros, so maybe somebody give me a wee link. I don't know who they are. And again, that's okay. It's the subjectivity of whiskey. It's fine for somebody not to like things or not to be impressed by things. The Ardnamurchan releases weren't out there to impress anybody. But I will tell you a wee tale. There's a guy in our whiskey club who's a bit of an Ardnamurchan fanboy, and he especially likes, he's got a wee fetish for single cask Ardnamurchans. And he declared the two bottles from me, after comparing them on a flight, the best that he had from refill. Remember, my Ardnamurchans are refill. So I would suggest that anybody coming to that needs to know that my Ardnamurchans are going to be so much more about exposing Ardnamurchan spirit and relying less on super active casks, although the casks were really interesting. It's a different take, refill versus first fill. Almost all the Ardnamurchans that have been released as single casks, with very few exceptions, including mine, are first fill. Lolander, if you could give me a wee link, it'd be nice to see it. David Lorenko saying, I meant most people cannot taste all bottles in the category side by side, so people vote on what they know or remember, and that's okay. That's right. We've been very clear. If you're going to put something out to the public, it's impossible to put something out there that everyone's going to have tried and we get votes on that. You have to put out a selection that you've thought about, that you've put effort into curating, and then leave it for the public to vote based on, have they bought it and tried it? Did they like it? Would they squander a vote on it? Remember, everyone gets 2 votes. Would they squander one of their votes on that? Would they repurchase it again? Would they recommend it to a friend? They have to think carefully before they use up their votes. And if they decide not to use up their votes, or maybe just use 1 vote and the people's choice, or 2 votes and the people's choice, they can do that too. Lolander saying, can you not see the link I just posted? Nope. I can't, but it might be that the admins, or it's just not letting you. Put it in the comments underneath, Lolander, or you can email it to me, whiskey@aqvavitae.com. Okay. The next confession that we have about the OSWAs is so predictable. Isn't it so predictable? As soon as Aaron was nominated again in 2023, it was obvious that they were going to win, wasn't it? It was obvious that Springbank was going to win Best Distillery. It was obvious that Ardnamurchan was going to win Best New Distillery. It was obvious that Springbank 10 was going to win the Best Scotch Whisky. It was so predictable. This is the feedback we're getting. Let me tell you, it's utter nonsense. It's nonsense. I was watching the process from the moment the public vote went live, and I had no idea what was going to, certainly not until it was halfway through the voting process what was going to come through the other end. Because if I did know what was going to come out the other end, it would make everything in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards much, much easier. Because we would know and we would be able to plan much, much quicker in advance. Some of the outcomes of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards were so close, and I'm going to share some stats with you tonight in order for you to see some of that, that you couldn't call it up until the last few days. In fact, one or two of them until the very last day. If you think it's also predictable, go back to any of the YouTube type content that they build up around the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. It's always interesting to watch, where they predict or they give their opinions on the nominations, they share their information, but often they'll try and predict or they'll share what they feel the winners could be. And they will say, I would pick this, but I think this is going to win it. None of them got it right. Of course, some of them got some of the categories right, but none of them got it right across the board. I think it's amazing how predictable something is after the event. Hindsight's got 20/20 vision, right? Oh, it's predictable. I think that what's surprised me about the Online Scotch Whisky Awards is that as we build it up every year, you get a feeling how things are going to go, and then they go a different way. I thought we were in the territory of seeing a Glen Scotia Victoriana winning for the second time the best Scotch whisky. That's what I thought. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. Of course it didn't, because the mix was completely different. People have got it out of their system how they feel about Victoriana, the discovery that it was. Glen Scotia Victoriana has also gone up in price since it was originally put forward as a nomination in 2022. It's moved. The landscape has changed. The nomination set has changed. I think it's very dangerous to consider that the Online Scotch Whisky Awards are predictable. I really don't think that they are. The Trifecta Award that we put into place this year is going to change things dramatically, but don't consider that that is going to be predictable. If you see Bruichladdich coming in second place in the distillery, if you remove Springbank, does that mean Bruichladdich going to win? I will argue with you, possibly, but possibly not. Because when people look at the 6 choices without Springbank, they no longer have Springbank to take care of one of their votes. So their votes are going to be spread quite differently. I think it's going to be super interesting to see best value, best distillery, best new distillery, and best independent bottler all being changed next year simply because of the Trifecta Awards. It's going to be fascinating to see. I guarantee you it will not make it any more predictable. Whiskey Myth Wally, do you think Whiskey of the Year will always be a core bottling? Or so you see something like a Glen Scotia seasonal release winning one year? No, I think if it's a large batch outturn, for me, this is just me picking a Whiskey of the Year, Ben, I would absolutely pick a seasonal release from Glen Scotia or something like that if it was valid. If it's a large enough batch release, for instance, one of the whiskey in the running for Whiskey of the Year last year was my Ardnamurchan at Madeira cask. I loved it so much. It hit me right at the right time in winter time. It was perfect seasonal whiskey. I loved it, and I thought this is a contender for Whiskey of the Year. In the end, of course, it didn't. It was Ledaig 18, but no, it doesn't need to be core range releases. I think it's nice if it's whiskey that people can enjoy and we can all enjoy it together, but it doesn't have to be. Sandro's saying with the new, and in my opinion, positive Trifecta Award, next year will be even more exciting. I'm glad you're looking forward to it, Sandra. It's going to be interesting to see. Whiskey Wolf is saying price cannot be a factor because all whiskey's prices changed. We only put the prices in there because we want to demonstrate what the prices were at the point of nomination so that people can look to see if they are having to pay over the odds contextually where they are, or if they are in a situation where maybe their local retailer has hiked the prices up or something like that, and they can make decisions based on that. It's been nominated based on that price point. Malcolm R is saying, I'm here because I like whiskey. I want to learn more. I value your opinion and I enjoy your company. Keep doing what you're doing. Malcolm R, please come back again, my friend. Thank you so much. And I think that what people take from our community here, and we need to preserve this, I always say it as much as we possibly can, regardless of what you think about me, and over time, Probably a lot of you are going to tire of me and become a bit jaded, and I'll end up repeating my kind of mantras and dogmas and whatever it is that I do over time. Because I'll be trying to cater for new people coming in and keeping it mixed up and all that kind of thing. And you may become a wee bit jaded, but never ever become jaded with our community. The positivity, the willingness to share, not just share knowledge and information and details, but share whiskey and experiences and everything. It's just a fabulous thing to have in a modern age where everything is so upended and cynical. Malcolm, thank you so much. It means a lot. Ian Graham is saying, have you considered the option of adding details to the online Scotch whisky voting system to show which of the nominations each voter has tasted? That would add extra useful data to the results. I don't know how we would do that. It's Molinari, isn't it, that said to simplify is complicated, to complicate is simple, right? I think we're doing okay with it just now, and we have to always, that philosophy of leading with trust, we have to hope that the votes are coming through just on things that people have tasted. Don't vote for things that you've not tasted. That's silly. It's silly. It's just a silly idea. I don't think people are doing that. I really just don't believe. I'm sure there are some people that do it, but I think it's a very small amount because it just doesn't make rational common sense to me. Multi-mission is saying, do you feel as if a lack of availability could be a strong or negative factor, e.g. the indie category? Playing devil's advocate here, obviously. We've got the indie category, but we've also got non-malt, which doesn't really engage people as much. World whiskey is probably the weakest category. But we still need to talk about it. Because if we just focus on Scotch, 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 Scotchy, Scotchy, Scotch, right? What are we comparing it to? How do we know that Scotch remains the best? How do we know that Scotch remains our favourite, our preferred lane to be in? Somebody out there has to be checking. Somebody has to be looking. Because it's not about because it's subjective. Indian whiskey comes along and Indian whiskey is suddenly better than Scotch whiskey. That's going to only ever be a subjective thing. But when it comes to price, when it comes to positioning, when it comes to availability, when it comes to removing the anxiety out of enjoying our hobby because it's affordable, Scotch has to be accountable. And the way that we do that is we look at the price, we look at the quality, that gives us the experience, the overall value proposition. Let's move on to the next one that I bought. The way that Scotch whisky affected me. My confession. I ran out and I thought I'd owned this. But I'm racking my brain. I went through the recycled review videos and I'm thinking, do you know what? I have not owned this bottle. I've not owned it. I feel like I'm familiar with it though. Or at least I feel like I know the value proposition. And yet you have this bottle of whiskey that's in front of me has never been on the shelves in the vPub and the Aqvavitae later. And yet it's won 3 online Scotch whisky awards. In 2021, it won. In 2023, it won twice. And it's a bourbon. This is what Scotch whisky drinkers voted as their favourite non-malt whisky and their favourite world whisky in 2023. This was a double winner, and it's won before. We've talked at length about how Wild Turkey seems to have that magic. Now, for a bourbon drinker, this is going to be a basic selection, isn't it? This is going to be ubiquitous to somebody who's a bourbon enthusiast or a bourbon aficionado. They're going to be wondering why we're making a big deal about Wild Turkey Rare Breed. Well, this is from the Scotch whisky community's perspective. Much like if we went into the bourbon world and gave them some recommendations to give them a step into exploring more Scotch, diversifying their flavour landscape. We wouldn't necessarily pick the things that we are loving, right? We wouldn't pick the top end of Scotch. We would pick things that made sense, that were appropriate for that context. That's a very quiet pop, wasn't it? That's a wee bit better. So let's finally get some rare breed into the glass and the vPub and see what all this fuss is about. So I confess that I have purchased this whiskey on the back of your positive feedback from it, based on the online Scotch Whisky Awards and the 3 awards that it's won. I should probably sip this alongside another bourbon. It's the only way that I can parse bourbons, I find. If I sip bourbon in isolation, it's very, very difficult for me. This is like sticking my nose into a bag or of, let's go with the pick and mix thing. So imagine fruit and nut pick and mix, where you've got fruit, dried fruit. It's like dates and things as well, though. It's not just dried fruit. But you've got dried fruit, but you've also got nuts, and you've got a dusty element to it as well. Dusty nuts. Sorry. But that's what I'm getting from it. There's toffee chews and toffee caramels. That date note is pervasive. But there's quite a weight to this. There's quite a power to this. 58.4% ABV, I think this is. Tiny writing, 58.4. So it's not up there with the Elijah Craig barrel proofs and the Jack Daniel's single barrel proof and all of these kind of things. It's attenuated somewhat. But I can tell this is going to be quite an engaging bourbon, just on the nose alone, because ABV does it for me when it comes to bourbon. Okay, much drier. Huge hit of wonderful cinnamon, nutmeg, cinnamon. When I was a kid, those big gobstoppers, they were called daredevils, and the heat from them was all cinnamon heat. That's what is here. It's just a cinnamon bomb. Finish goes on forever. Much more approachable than you would expect at 58.4% ABV. But just a satisfying sip of whiskey. Nothing like Scotch. Nothing like Scotch whiskey. Treacle toffee. Syrup. Sweet syrup, maple syrup. Ginger. Cinnamon ginger. I paid £55 for this. I had a look around to see what other potent and powerful bourbon I could pick up for £55, and there were a few, but there was none, or there were none that came with the reassurance of Wild Turkey. When I say that, I mean reassurance from my community, reassurance from what the 101 brings me. The 101 is a staple here. I go through a lot of it because it's very inexpensive. I think the reason that Rare Breed is sitting so nicely with the Scotch whisky drinking community is that they can enjoy a good, potent, mid-strength bourbon. I'm still tasting it now. Lots and lots of flavor, lots of intensity at a fantastic price. £55 is expensive. I know there's people in the States going to be going, what, you pay £55 for this? I understand. And especially in the last couple of years, the price has gone up quite a bit. But compared to its peers, it's tough to find a lot of bourbons at good ABVs, good potent ABVs, to keep all that flavor intact, to keep the structure there, to keep the body there, keep the weight there, to keep it hanging around like it is on my palate right now. It's tough to find alternatives. That's why Rare Breed has done so well. However, what I want to say to all my community, all my contributors, all our contributors, all the online Scotch Whisky Awards contributors, and the community out there is, remember, there is no category in online Scotch Whisky Awards for bourbon. There is a non-malt category, and you can go anywhere, and the inspiration is beyond a joke today. I hope that in the next year ahead, you explore more of it with your friends, with your whisky clubs, at festivals. I hope you get a wee bit more promiscuous. And in world whisky, we have never been so spoiled. I don't think we need to always lean on an available bourbon because there's available everything. One of my confessions is that I think it's incumbent upon us as contributors to bring the variety up front and not just look at a category and pick the first thing that comes into our head because it's affordable and we buy it regularly. Not me, that's the first time I've bought this in the case of the rare breed, and I'm very glad to have that on the shelf. That is exactly what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a big, hitting, potent bourbon. I have no desire to add water to this. No desire to bring it down. I want to feel everything. I want to taste everything. I like the fizz. I like it. It's on my gums. It's on my teeth. It's just hanging around. Is this £55 worth of whiskey? Is it good value in 2023? I have to say aye. It really is. In 2023, I think it's hard to get something like that for that price point. I think that is Wild Turkey's secret. I think that's why it's doing so well. I theorized in the past that Wild Turkey probably had a nice, approachable profile to encourage Scotch drinkers to enjoy it. But I think what's the truth about it is it's available everywhere and it's at a damn good price. Remember that the Eagle Rare 10 beat it in the People's Choice this year. Another good one, but 45% ABV, 10-year-old. Fantastic stuff, though. Fantastic. Rare Breed also makes an amazing old-fashioned. Do you know what, Pedro? You must have read my mind. It's coming into that season where I like to get out the... what's the name of the cherries? Oh, my goodness. What's the name of the cherries? Very specific cherries with a yellow label. Doesn't matter. I've got them there waiting. And I can make a wee cocktail for myself and explore and play around with different things over the course of winter. And it's nice to have that there to maybe treat myself. Herbin is saying a bourbon drinker would be in awe of Deanston Virgin Oak, I imagine. Yeah, you think that because of the Virgin Oak element, you think that that's going to be the Scotch to draw bourbon drinkers into Scotch. But I think it gives them flavours that they're familiar with other flavours that are jarring. I think it's sometimes nice to just bring them in and give them something that's so completely different that it actually makes them pay attention to the hook rather than what they're familiar with being a bit different. However, I think there's a lot of truth in what you say, and I think that maybe, depending on the person that you're speaking to, something like a Deanston Virgin Oak could be a good transition whiskey, absolutely. Carson is saying maraschino cherries from, but no, that's not. It's the specific brand. It's the wee jar with the yellow label. What's the name of the cherries? It's not maraschino. It's... Anyway, doesn't matter. It'll come to me a wee bit later. I'm getting so old. Anyway, time for some more confessions, okay? I'm going to share with you something that people are asking me and people are talking about this like it's a secret, okay? Who are the secret core contributors? Who are they? Who are these mysterious people? Let me tell you what makes this mysterious, okay? And mysterious in quotation marks as well. Every year we gather contributors and we bring them together and we say, do you want to be involved? And they say, yes. That's it, they're involved. Ralfy and I look at the list and we say, I pick the ones that I think are going to be strong contenders. Ralfy picks his. There's often very, very strong overlap because we're looking at people that are experienced, that have done the time, that are respected, that they've got their community, they've got their audience, they've got an opinion, people know, and there's a sense of depth and trust there. And we've got a relationship with them. So we pick our favourites. Then we go back into the list and we add more. We add more that maybe we've used in the year before. We add more that we haven't used, or they've never had a wee go. They've never had a shot. They've never been part of it. But people that we think can add valid and valuable nominations. And we have to limit it. Why? Because we either bring in all the contributors for a nomination and we have literally 65 entries for every one, or we limit it to contributors with pedigree and we give them more nominations. So we've increased it to 2 to 3. 3 nominations. Every contributor, every core contributor could put forward 3 nominations. This year, the final number ended up being 15. I think we invited 18 and we ended up working with 15. And through that, we could have gone from anywhere from a handful of nominations up to 45. If everybody's able to put in 3, that gives us 45. So already 15 contributors is just so much. And we know that that works better. Because if you go and you expand the number of contributors to 30 to 40 and give them 1 or 2 votes, you get much less diversity. It makes sense. Think about it. Everybody votes for the same thing. Everybody offers the same thing, puts forward the same thing. So if we cut down the contributors and ask them to put forward 3, it builds diversity into the nominations. Because they're not going to put 3 the same thing or 2 and 1. They're going to pick 3 different things. We've proved this in the refinements. It works like this. And when it comes to communication and administrating all of this and managing it, believe me, it's the only way that's going to work. We will continue to look at it and refine it and grow it or shrink it, whatever we need to do going forward. And we will continually mix it up year after year who those contributors are. After we've got those, and it can literally be anywhere from 12 to 18 nominations up to the full 45, that then goes out to everybody, the core contributors and the wider participating contributors, for everybody to vote on it. They cannot vote. You're not allowed to vote for your own nomination unless someone else has put that forward too. If there's a duplicate, then of course you can vote for theirs and you end up being able to vote for your own. It's a good dynamic and it helps the best float to the top. There are going to be there's going to be possibilities to refine the process going forward, but we find that to work. We've done it 3 times now and we can see what works. These people are not secret. There's no secret. While the OSWAs are live, yes, it's secret. Why? Why don't we tell people who the core contributors are? Because we want to be shady. No. If you're going to corrupt the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, you take your bottle, you look at the core contributors, and you go along and say, I see you're a core contributor for the OSWAs this year. Here, nominate this. Here's a couple of bottles and here's a wee bag of money. Like that's ever going to happen. I exaggerate to make a point. We don't think that that's going to happen anywhere. But what we don't want is the community looking at it and thinking that that's what's happening. So we do not disclose who they are. If they want to disclose who they are, if they want to tell you that they are a core contributor, we don't stop them. That's absolutely fine. They can do what they want to do. Ralfy and I don't want to police anybody's anything. But we keep it quiet. And in the end, if you saw the credits last year, the credits this year, we shared with everybody who the core contributors were. If I've still got the spreadsheet up, actually, I'll share it with you. I'll share this year's with you. Let's see if I can get it, and I'll tell you who they were. You know who they are if you want to look at the end credits, because it's up there. But the 15 this year, in alphabetical order this spreadsheet's in alphabetical order, was myself, Aqvavitae. I got to put forward 3 votes this year. I hope I get to in the future as well, or 3 nominations. Then Dramface, I was not part of the Dramface crowd. They worked together in order to refine their own votes, completely isolated and independent of me. I'm not interested in being part of that, but what I do want involved is web spaces and other things outside of YouTube. And I hope that over time, as the OSWAs mature, we rely less on that kind of core foundation of YouTube. But the fact remains that that's where most of the creativity and development and whisky reviews are happening right now. Dramface is new, and it is in the web space. It's more than a year old now. It couldn't be involved in 2022 because it was too young, but it's old enough now, so they were involved. First Fill Whiskey in New Zealand, G Whiskey in Taiwan, Malt, another based review website. It's been around for years. Malt's involved. Malt Activist, he's in Dubai or something, I want to say. Ralfy, of course. Sippers Social Club in Canada. The Ensign Europe, it's a pub in Edinburgh. So that means there's 16 here, because I've got the Bonaccord here too. So the 16th is the Bonaccord. Then we've got the Grail in Stirling, Calendar actually. We've got Whiskey Novice Jim in Northern Ireland. We've got the Whiskey Friend in Manchester, but of course he's Glaswegian. Whiskey in the Six in Toronto. Whiskey Wednesday down south, down in England as well. And Whiskey Whistle. Now, Mark is in Winnipeg right now, but he's moving back to Korea again. So that was our 15 in 2022. Sorry, in 2023. And we shared that in the closing credits as we did last year. So there's a lot of people saying, who are these mysterious core contributors? Please understand why we don't share it. We don't want to advertise who they are. It's as much to do with optics as anything. We don't really believe that anything's going to be corrupted in that way, because we trust the people, and people aren't going around with boxes of whiskey and bags of cash. It's not happening, especially when the OSWAs are at the scale that they're at right now. But we want to make it clear to everyone that it's very robust and it's very difficult to corrupt. Trainstar Evil has bought me a wee dram to say, Redbreast won 3 times. Does it mean it can't be nominated? Is RB Redbreast won 3 times? So it's consecutive years in the same category for the trifecta, Trainstar. So I hope that makes some sense. Thanks for your dram. Thank you. Ian Bullock is saying, it's been a while since I caught a live one. Just wanted to thank you for sticking around and bringing us good content. Ian, it's amazing to have you in again, my friend. And whenever you can pick it up live or on the replay, I really do appreciate it. And thanks for your dram. Cheers to you both. Graham Young said, I can honestly say that as a fellow that has to size up and assess and then treat folks all day, every day, that you have been judged to be credible and trustworthy by all in this group. It's something that has to be earned and something that has to be maintained, Graham. So we'll do the very, very best we can. And at the end of the day, what we want to stand up and be is simply messengers holding up a mirror for the community, from the community, for the industry, because of the industry. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes on. Anyway, the next bottle is another OSWA inspiration. I didn't buy this. I did not buy this. This is something that's been given to me. But it's been given to me by you, by the community. This was given to me by my friend Robert. Robertson, he's an American living in Edinburgh. And at Legfest, he came up to me and handed me a bottle because he knew I was after it. Now, I was after it before it was nominated in the OSWAs again. I've been after this. I think Blue Spot came out in 2020, but it disappeared very, very quickly. It took Irish distillers quite a wee while to catch up on batches and get enough batches out there into the marketplace for Blue Spot to be available generally to everyone. Now, Blue Spot is, of course, Irish whiskey, specifically single pot still Irish whiskey. And in the case of the Blue Spot, it's a cask strength version. Famously, what a great wee noise. What a great wee noise. Famously, the Blue Spot uses bourbon casks, sherry casks, and Madeira casks. So if anybody knows me and has been listening to me for long enough, that knows that I have a wee fetish, I've realised that I tend to enjoy whiskey that's spent a wee bit of time in a Madeira cask. So I've been after the Blue Spot since it first appeared. Its appearance in 2 categories in this year's OSWAs only made it a wee bit more of a priority. So how much of a delight was it for Robert to come up after we'd announced that it was in 2 categories and gift me a bottle as well? Robert, cheers to you. Let's coat the glass a wee bit. Let's get the liquid all over the glass. Now, at 58.9% ABV, I'm mostly anaesthetizing my nose as I stick it right in here, but it's fine. This is much more cask forward than I expected. This is a 7-year-old whiskey. I expected it to be super spirity, but it's very casky. So I'm getting sandalwood. I'm getting oak. Lots of oak. Golden syrupy oak, sweet oak as opposed to tannic oak. It's almost bourbon-like. There's quite a bit of fruit on the nose. Ripe fruit, ripe stone fruit, ripe peach, nectarine. Sweet orange oils. So that's just as soon as I've found that, as soon as you find the citrus, you lock in on it. It's quite sweet citrusy. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Here's to Blue Spot. I've tried Blue Spot before, but this is the first bottle I've ever owned. That's quite excellent. I think it's a brave thing for a producer to put that 7-year age statement on there. Hardly anybody approaching this blind would be able to pick this up at 7 years old. I think there's a lot of spirit on the palate. There's a lot of fizz. There's a lot of power there. There's a lot of potency. There's a lot of distillate character there. On the nose, it was all about cask, but on the palate, it's very, very alive. But what's quite surprising when it first arrives, it's a wee bit like when the rare breed first arrives. You're just hit by this ABV, this kind of potent power, and it grabs your gums and it grabs everything straight away and really distracts you. But what was just that one sip? There's a lot more to unpack in this, a lot more complexity. There's a lovely, lovely mouth coat and texture to it too. So the citrus on the palate is different. Much more pithy, much more zesty. Some light bitter edges coming in. Kind of the citrus rind things, the zest is leading you down that way. Some dark fruit. Would I go as far as chocolate? Not chocolate, but rich, ripe, sweet fruitcake. Soft spice. Excellent texture. Excellent complexity. Of course, this didn't win anything. Wild Turkey had it soundly beaten this year. But to see it appear, to see it so supported in People's Choice by the community, to see it appear in the nominations for non-malt and for World Whisky, for me to look at it and in my predictions thinking the Blue Spot's either going to take one or both of those categories, I need to get a bottle of that. Robert to bring it to me. For me to see that there, I knew that I've got Chateau Leoville Barton down there. I've got Chateau Montelena. I don't have any of the standard Green Spot anymore, but I've always loved it, despite the fact it's a 40%. Yellow Spot's got a bit pricey, but it used to be a permashelf item for me until it broke 60, 65 pounds. Now it's 75 pounds, 80 pounds. I love the Yellow Spot too. The Spot series is something I'm a fan of. I've got the Gold Spot down there, but I honestly don't think the Gold Spot is worth the money. The Gold Spot's a 9-year-old, of course. This is a different prospect. Is it the Madeira cask? How interesting that they typed non-chill filtered on the label. For a cask strength whiskey. There's a nice bitterness to this. There's a nice kind of almost, it's not chocolate. It's maybe like a mocha coffee thing. Dark chocolate, maybe bitter chocolate. That's the finish. That's the thing that hangs around. It's like a, you know, the really, really high cocoa content chocolate it's only is for the real chocolate geeks. You know, it's really difficult to just eat and enjoy on its own. It's something that's very specific. It's reminiscent of that. I know I pulled out treacle as a tasting note on the bourbon tonight, but I'm getting a kind of dark sugar treacle thing. I'm thinking of, you know, those really dense sponge cakes that you get, the Christmas cakes. Just a cracking whiskey. It's going to be, that's a neck pour, of course. I never review. You can't score on a neck pour. You have to give the whiskey time, the bottle time. You have to give yourself time, and you have to kind of understand that a wee bit more. But that's a good bottle. That's a good bottle to have on the shelf. I've always been a fan of single pot still Irish whiskey. I really have. And that's quite a good one. Robert, thank you very much. Now, am I just being nice about this whiskey because it was gifted to me from the community? I'll hazard that Robert and I would still be friends if I said, nah, that's bang average. We know it's not going to be bad because of how much the community loves it. It might not be up our street. But that's not the case. I'm being honest because I need to be honest to Robert. I need to be honest with the entire community. I need to tell people what I actually think of this. And I love that I've got this on my shelf. I'm going to go one further. I know the last bottle I'm going to share with you that I purchased on the back of the line Scotch Whisky Awards this year is still to be uncorked. But if I pour another dram before I go to bed tonight, while I'm sitting here doing my housekeeping and my tidying up, whatever it is, I suspect it's going to be this. A 7-year-old whiskey. Incredible stuff. Okay, time to move on. Some more confessions from me. What would I do to improve things next year? I think we need to consider always how we can improve things. That's a given. It's an obvious statement to make, isn't it? Almost lazy. But what are we actually achieving? What are we bringing what the community wants, needs? Are we giving any kind of valuable feedback snapshots to the industry? What are we actually achieving? Are we just sitting around indulging ourselves? I think that we need to keep an eye on it. I think it needs 5 years in order to see where we started out in 2021. So we're going to take it through. Next year will be 2024, 2025. That'll be the 5th year. 2026, we look at it and say, what have we achieved? And each year will be a snapshot, and it'll be something that kind of almost shows and displays the shape of the whiskey scene, the very generalized whiskey scene over the course of 5 years. And then we make a call on it. But I'm telling you now, the moments that I enjoyed, not just from this year, but especially this year, were the fun moments, the giggles, the tongue-in-cheek stuff, the things that betrayed the spirit of our community, the humor. I think the OSWAs need to be serious. I think the OSWAs need to be serious fun. Let me give you an example. You know, there was a blooper, and I missed a vignette. I missed one of the segments, and I knew I'd missed it because I was running out of sequence on the running list on the chart, and Ralfy and I couldn't figure out what had gone wrong. We couldn't work it out live on the night. If we'd spent a minute, we could have, but we missed it. In the end, there was a vignette that didn't go out there, and it was a good vignette, and it had a bit of humour in it. Can I share it with you tonight? Is it okay to share the missing OSWA's vignette? Here it is.
I always eagerly await this time of year where we get to celebrate this, which is more than just a drink. It's who you're sharing it with, the memories it creates, who made it, where they made it, which distillery made it, and who's celebrating it, which is what makes the awards so unique. It's about us as voters and contributors all coming together to celebrate our favourite drams. So, cheers to you.
Alright guys, greetings from the Bonaccord Bothy. Just like to raise a glass to the voting community, the participants and the winners obviously when it happens, of this year's online Scotch Whisky Awards, now in its third year running. Thanks very much guys, Slange.
From the very bottom of the whisky world, the Single Malt Review thanks all of our voters and our hosts for the OSWA'd 2023.
Just fantastic. Just fantastic, right? So we've got First Fill Whiskey. I mean, really one of the finest creators that we've got in whiskey in 2023. The stuff he's putting out there with a very, very, very good focus on helping people understand concepts that might have first seemed intimidating, and anticipating how difficult it is going to be for them because of the process that he's gone through. And he's able to do it in a way, because of his skills as a video editor, that's so easy to consume. And he's an impassioned, enthusiastic part of the OSWA's movement, and it's brilliant to have him. It's brilliant to have him in our community. And then we've got Thomas from the Bonaccord there. If you walk into the Bonaccord, he's got an OSWA's shelf. You want to try any of the winners? You want to talk about the OSWA's? They've got a spot for you to do that in there. It's a very real, in real life thing to do, to render this digital concept real life. It's fantastic. I hope that you go back and watch Thomas's segment there to look for the wee Ralfy Easter eggs in his Bonaccord Bothy as he recorded that scene. I know that you struggled to understand Thomas when he was on live, very thick Glaswegian accent, but it doesn't take much time. You'll soon be understanding him, especially if you spend time in his bar. And at the end, you've got, well, is it Tim and Dave? Well, no, it was just Tim upside down at the end, obviously coming in from the upside down and just making a joke about that and somehow managing to balance and hold a glass up in the air as well. And I suspect that's why it was such a short segment, trying to hold himself upside down. Just great fun, great humor, smiles, happiness. I want to see more of that. And I'm sorry to all of those guys for missing that segment. You know, everyone knows it wasn't deliberate. But what it meant I did is I put all the segments together, included that in there, and then put the bonus segments on the end as well. And that's another video that you can watch on the channel. I'll link it in the description below. This is how I want to change things for next year. I think the OSWA's could be even more entertaining, more fun. It could increase our engagement if we allowed our individual personalities to show, and for us to be playful with it. And know that this isn't a serious corporate thing. We don't have any overlords or bosses or people signing checks at the end of the day to make this all happen. Now, we can do what we like, and we can have a bit of fun with it. We can even be a wee bit tongue-in-cheek and maverick, and it'll be okay, because we're enthusiasts and we're passionate about whiskey. We love whiskey, but we love it because whiskey should be fun. I think the OSWA's should be fun. Craig Doris saying, ABC check on your liquid before you hit that back seat. Oh, I'm not sure what you're talking about there. You're speaking to Peter Lee as well. An Aqvavitae ABC check on your liquid. I wonder which one that is. On this one here, on the blue spot, it meets the ABCDs, I believe. I'm not sure about colour, but A for age statement. It's got an age statement on there. Bottling strength is 58.9% ABV. Superb. C for chill filtration. It tells us it's non-chill filtered. It's just about colour, natural colour, which tends to be the thing that the industry is most shy about putting on the label. Certainly the big corporates and things. There's a nice wee message there on the side from Robert. Superb, Robert. Thank you so much. So there we have it. That's what I'm going to look forward to changing in 2024. To try and encourage people. I'm not going to, can't force anything. You know, you just have to, it has to be what it is. but encourage them to be a wee bit playful. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for more contributors, but more than anything, more exposure for those contributors. So I know for a fact that there are people out there creating content in whiskey, writing reviews, sharing extensive, deep, valuable, rich social media channels, YouTube, content creators, people doing interviews, people doing live streams, people doing pre-recorded content, reviewing, uncorking, scoring, sharing, all of it. There are people out there that are not involved in the OSWAs. And they're sitting back thinking, well, why have I not been invited? Why am I not involved? I hope by now throughout tonight's stream you've worked out why, because I cannot administer the entire YouTube community. I cannot administer the entire Twitter, or X as it's called now, and Instagram and Facebook and all of these places. I just cannot do it. On the website, on the OSWA's website, there's a place for you to say, I want to be involved. And my inbox is full of people that have hit that button in 2023. And it's my job now that it's 2023 project is over, to go back to them all now and say, thank you for registering your interest to be involved. Tell me what you do. How can we see what you do? And how do you want to be involved? They need to be active for at least a year and guiding sensible decisions in Scotch whisky. They need to declare that they will not take product from the industry and promote it, that they will lead with trust, and that they will lead with integrity. They need to have been active within the last year. So things that have fallen silent or have fallen into some kind of dormancy or whatever, that we're not going to exclude you, but you need to have been active. You need to, if you're planning on starting things up again, then great. So if you're out there wondering why you've not been invited, please don't wait for an invite from me. I cannot keep up. I don't have the bandwidth to think about everybody and everywhere and sit down and write an invitation email. Step up and say, I enjoy this, I believe in this thing, and I want to be involved. Or step up and say, I need to understand a wee bit more. We've tried. We've really, really tried. Stephen Wilson is saying, Roy, if I ever see you and Ralfy show up in tuxedos on stage, I'll know that OSWAs have lost their charm. I think, Stephen, it's nice to see you, and that looks like a new name. Welcome, if it is a new name. I don't think there's much chance, my friend. The last time I wore I actually did wear a tuxedo recently, and I didn't enjoy it. I had a nice night, but because the tuxedo wasn't part of it. Peter Lay saying, good evening to see you. It's nice to see you, Peter. You've obviously finished your shift. Can we have a rated R OSWAs after dark like they used to do with Hollyoaks? You know, one of the things that I suggested, the first year we had an after party, and it was just it was anybody could join, honestly, to watch. But there was a link put in the ceremony. People could jump in if they wanted to hang out a wee bit longer. But Ralfy and I worked out that because it had gone on quite a long time, that the after party, you know, just it's exhausting, you know, for us to sit there for 3 hours and try and stay focused and things. But that's never say never. There are ways for after parties and fun things to come about in the future. You just don't know what shape it's going to take. We never know. Whiskey Wolf is saying recommendation for a dram by to try. Kingsbarn's Bellrock 2023 cast strength, 61.1% as well. Whiskey Wolf, you're not the first person to say that. There are loads of people out there. I think this Bellrock is putting Kingsbarns on the map. Personally, I was a fan of Dream to Dram, but that wasn't a big high ABV big hitter like that one. The Bellrock, I haven't tried it. It's one to look out for. I might get a chance to try it this weekend. Thank you. Justin Mann is saying, how much help have you got? It'll eventually outgrow you. We have the help of all the contributors, of course. It'll probably outgrow Ralfy and I, certainly. And we need to always have something that's built that can be passed on, that other people can inherit, that other people can be part of in the future. Will it outgrow us? If we overcomplicate things, if we allow every little criticism to be taken on board and accommodated, yeah, it'll quickly become difficult to manage. But we have to just work out the right balance in order to build a product that can last. Not sure if we can do it, but we'll give it a wee try. Gerwin Blocker is saying, good evening, Aqvavitae. Very late arrival, but I'll stay for the quiz. Gerwin, it's wonderful to have you, my friend. There is a quiz tonight. There definitely is. And I put it to you that it might be a wee bit of a tricky quiz tonight. It's one for, I think, the fortunate, the fearless, and maybe the knowledgeable. I'm not sure. I'm never sure until we actually do it live how the quiz is going to go. Whiskey Wolf is saying, if you like Dream to Dram, Duca is next in line as their current flagship bottle to enjoy. The Duca I've not tried yet. I do need to try it, but I think I'm more interested in trying. 61.1% is quite appealing, right? So I think it. I think the Bell Rock is maybe the one that everybody's talking about at the minute. Aye, Roy, Aqvavitae, delegate. Well, you know, Helen, you know, don't you? Perfect. Okay, so let's move on. The only other thing that I had to suggest that I wanted to improve, and I won't hang on, is timing and cadence and speeding things up a bit, but you know I'm not very good at that. But I think that there are moments that we could race through a wee bit quicker and then just leave it hanging on screen so that if people wanted to go back and pause and take in the details and the stats a wee bit later, then they could. That's the other thing. Anyway, let's open the last bottle. My last confession, the last thing that I purchased based on the OSWA's in 2023. I tell you what, I don't know if you got a glimpse of that as I brought it in there. Guess what the bottle is. I on the live ceremony, I said it's Set the Heather Alight, the whiskey Heather Alight. Everybody's talking about it and it's appeared from nowhere. Does anybody know what it is? Tweedley, it's good, so good to see you. And again, it's nice to have you back in the vPub. Less of the apologising, Aqvavitae. You've done a fantastic job. Thank you so much. And it took me a week to watch the whole show. No doubt, Jimmy. I understand. I really do. And yet some other people were annoyed that we finished when we did, that we'd rushed it, that we'd finished too early. It's difficult to... okay. Rob Smith is saying, what quiz isn't tricky? You're right, Rob. You're absolutely spot on. It is tricky. Hey, Rob, I sent you a wee direct message on Patreon. Go and have a wee look for me, my friend. And if you get a minute, respond to it. Oh, look at this. Kilchoman, Sanaig, Kilchoman, Sanaig. Kilchoman. Carsten is saying, Indri. No, I have the Indri. I've been talking about the Indri for quite a wee while. The Indri's been talked about by a lot of people because Indri's been going round and giving everybody free bottles of it, I think. I've heard that I was never offered a free bottle of Indri. And if I was, I wouldn't have accepted it, but that's just the way I run things, the way I choose to be. I'm a wee bit annoying that way, I know. This Kilchoman had a clear capsule on it that I peeled off in advance thinking it would make it easy, but then the wee tear strip is broken on me. But we're good to go now. There we go. I didn't accept anything from Indri because I was never offered it, but if I was, I wouldn't have accepted it either. I discovered Indri based on Menno, Multi-Mission Menno. He was speaking to me at the New Year vPub and said, oh, I've found this and I enjoy this. I bought a bottle as we were speaking live, and I've bought a lot of that whiskey since. Anyway, you're absolutely spot on. I think I suggested that I was going to pick this up, and I duly did. This is Kilchoman's Sanaig. This is purchased purely on the back of how much our community is enjoying this wee Kilchoman. People that know my journey of discovery with Kilchoman, it wasn't a distillery I was particularly in love with in their early days, but is absolutely a distillery that's come of age today. Their Machir Bay is pretty tremendous. The Sanaig is also a core range release from them, but rather being a bourbon cask like the Machir Bay, what we have with the Sanaig is a vatting of bourbon and sherry casks, but with a heavy leaning towards sherry cask. And yet I'm not entirely sure that that's how it's nosing first approach. A lot of people know out there that I suffer from peat blight. So when I nose some whiskies, especially if the smoke is quiet or delicate, I don't always pick up the smoke first. I've kind of dialed it out over time. Spend a wee bit of time away from smoky whiskies. You can bring it back, no problem. But listen, there's no danger of that with this powerful, potent, heavily peated Islay whiskey. Lots and lots of smoke. Yes, because we're looking for sherry cask elements in here, sherry cask maturation, notes, flavours. We can find it. But there's a roundness and a sweetness and a much more approachable side to this whiskey than... So sometimes sherry casks can be they can be very dry. They can be very delicious and enjoyable, but much more singular in their experience. It's all about the sherry cask, the sherry cask, the sherry cask. That's not what's happening here. This is quite an interesting, juicy sherry. Let's go with that. Some sweetness as well. There's even a nice bit of floral vanilla, caramel. But I'm skipping past all of the more obvious kind of ripe fruits. Chewy fruits, chewy cherries. Get some orchard here too. Try to focus on the fruit mix. It's not ashen. It's not like the Southern Isles. It's peaty, but it's more like an aromatic peat, a kind of indoors peat rather than an outdoors peat, which just sounds ridiculous. But I'm doing it live. I'm struggling. Bear with me. Yeah, it's much more like a hearth, like a smoky fire, a peat fire in a house, rather than an outdoor, rather than the kind of grass and wood and twigs and ashen side that you maybe get from Ardbeg. Certainly not the medicinal style that you would get from Lafroig. Yeah, it's a much more approachable kind of warm, cozy peat, but it is very peaty. And the nose is very sweet and rich. Cheers, everyone. My first sip of Kilchoman Sanaig. There's a farm side to Kilchoman. It's a farm distillery. I know, but there's that farm creeps into their liquid, no doubt about it. Different levels depending on the expression, but even in this quite rich, quite casky Sanaig, there's a farmy element in there too. It's not bad, it's not off-putting, it's actually attractive and it's nice. What's incredible about this is a non-age statement whiskey, is the maturity. It's a ridiculous thing to say, but when I've approached Kilchomans in the past, even their Lochgorms and things like that, their annual releases, they've often had a bit of that kind of jaggy elbow and knees and ankles type thing about it. Just a bit of youth. But it's fading as the years go by. This is a mature, well-rounded, balanced, well put together whiskey. I think it's leaning more towards sherry than bourbon, but it's in balance. It's still somehow in balance. This is rich, easy whiskey. This is powerful. I'm trying to think about where else I would go on Islay. Now, this was £60, I think I paid for this. £60, £58, something like that, which is less than I suggested live on the OSWAs at the weekend. I made a mistake and I pitched it a wee bit high. £58, £60, I think, from memory. So where else do I go? Ardbeg can't bring that for us anymore. It'd be higher ABV, to be fair. The Rugidal. But it's more expensive. Forget Lagavulin. Bamor, we can It's heartbreaking, but there's really not much on offer from Bowmore. Not at this price point, not at this quality. A couple of Moyniers from Bunnahabhain, maybe occasionally. I don't know about their core range. Bunnahabhain's probably the closest competitor, I would say. I have some Brookladdies, Port Charlottes with this much sherry. Nope. Maybe if you're happy to enjoy wine maturation, you could go to Brookladdy, Port Charlotte. But are we saying that the reason Sanaig is so successful in the 2023 OSWAs, that Sanaig is getting so much traction with the community in 2023 is because it's peerless? Full, rich, 46, right? 46% ABV, but packs plenty flavour for it. I'm sipping it on the back of a super high ABV Wild Turkey Rare Breed and a even higher still ABV Blue Spot 7-year-old. I suspect the Blue Spot and the Kilchoman they're probably similarly aged, and that the minimum age is probably somewhere in the orders of 7 years old, I would guess. But I would suspect that there's older casks in the play here. There has to be to bring this. What a beautiful thing to have. I'm terrified about the price that Kilchoman is going to release their 16-year-old at. I'm already prepared for the fact I'm just not going to be able to afford it. One of those whiskies that's not for me. However, Kilchoman Sanaig, at the price I paid for this, you're right. As a community, you're right. This is excellent whiskey, and I know why you're celebrating it. If you love spirity, spirit-forward whiskies, this one might not attract you. I suspect that there's a lot of kind of, no, but it's not. I think it genuinely is balanced. I think it's probably one of the most mature at first approach Kilchomans I've ever experienced. I think it might be the pick of the range. If you're speaking to somebody like me who loves Spirit Forward, of course, loves ex-bourbon cask, I've fallen in love with the most recent Machier Bays. They're just better than they've ever been. I think this is displaying some of that. The confidence, the maturity now, the fact that Kilchoman's been around for knocking on for 17 or 18 years, and we're starting to be able to taste that in the whiskey. We're tasting that maturity. I'm not suggesting there's 17 or 18-year-old whiskey in here, absolutely not, but just they've got that experience under their belt now. They've got much more depth and variety of stock than they've had in the past, and I think it's playing out in the releases. It's incredible. Tweedley's saying, not Isla, but what about the new lag? I've not tried the Corrie Cravie, is it? I've yet to try that. I've got the Komori over there. It's been on a vPub. Loved the Sherry Cask release last year. Excited as hell about lag. Another unique distillery. Alistair Grace say Marks and Spencer's have a Kilchoman exclusive for £35. I saw that. It was Loch Sunart or something, wasn't it? I was trying to see what kind of ABV it was going to be at, but I'm surely Kilchoman is not going to drop below 46% ABV. They bottle on site, and as far as I'm aware, they have no chance of being able to chill filter anything, so that's really reassuring. I suggest the lag is, as it's also NAS. Most new distilleries are the Tweedley, aren't they? So it's just what we're playing with just now. We can easily work out that we know it's going to be 3 and 4 year old whiskey in that one. Helen is saying, have you tried the Kilchoman Madeira sample yet? I think I drank. Did I not sip it on the vPub? I think it's gone, Helen. But because it's Madeira, you can guarantee I loved it, right? I think I sipped half of it on the lock-in for patrons, and then I finished it a bit later. Anyway, thank you, Helen. Loved it. And thank you for thinking of me, especially because you knew it was Madeira cask. Worried about Kilchoman pricing. Just paid £120 for the cognac matured cask, says Rob Smith. Yes. Listen, it's all whiskey's getting expensive. I'm super worried. I mean, Kilchoman's special releases have always been a wee bit pricier. I'm super worried about the 16-year-old. And It is what it is. What we need to focus on is the whiskies that's still within our reach, Rob, right? I like the Sanaig, finished a bottle this year, much preferred it to the Mahir Bay, strangely. Glad you're enjoying it too, Jimmy Leg. That's quite a thing from you for you to be happy about something you tried. Whiskey Radar, that's Roland in saying £60. Crazy. In Germany, the Sanaig is like £45 or €50. On offer, even less. I bought mine at €42 or so. Especially Germany, they often get very, very good pricing. Some of the best pricing on the continent is in Germany. Whiskey and Wine Trails, Tom is saying, you're in Glasgow, Tom. The Kilchoman 16 MSRP is £206. Nope. Nope today, nope tomorrow, nope the next day. It's not for me. It's obviously very, very limited, the people who can afford to pay £216 for a 16-year-old Isla whiskey. I know it's going to be gorgeous. That's the problem. Stephen Wilson is saying it's bought me a wee dram as well with just a wee, literally just a picture of a dram. And no comment. Stephen, thank you very much, but I've missed a dram from my pal Whiskey Works Graham. Just jumping on briefly to early to head to Casanovis before the flight in the morning. Going to be a great weekend, Slancho. You're one of the Hallion coming over here, Graham, and I can't wait to see you the weekend and all your pals. You always bring a lot of colour and fun. Cheers to you. And cheers to Stephen Wilson as well. Cheers, Stephen. I feel like it could be the first time I've welcomed you this evening, Stephen. Just double check. I'm not sure. Jimmy, like you saying, expensive whiskey has saved me a lot of money. That's the irony, isn't it? Greg's Whiskey Guide is in. Good to see you, Greg. Greg in Paris saying, if you see Loch Grunart at 46% somewhere, though exclusive to France, folks, buy it. It is the only whiskey I've bought 6 bottles in 2 years so far. 2 bottles finished. My favourite one now. Oh, wow. So big endorsement there from Greg in Paris for Loch Grunart, which is at Marks and Spencer exclusive. And it's not expensive, it's £35. Oh my goodness. Let's share my last confession before we roll into a tricky quiz tonight. Last thing I've got to share with you is that we're not changing anything for 2024. So many of you have suggested things that we could do differently, but I think a lot of the suggestions are you're not thinking through the caveats, the complications that they then involve, because you want to expand or you want to delete or you want to replace and you want to do all of these things. Like I say, I think we need a few years of stability and evolution rather than revolution in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards in order for people to understand what it is, in order for us to process its value. If we keep changing it up and changing it up and changing it up, it's going to be difficult to follow this kind of moving target. We're going to try and keep it the same. We're going to see it through. We're going to let it play out. We saw so much more engagement this year. So much more engagement. 45,000 votes nearly. That's up on 32,000 last year. Amazing to see. It shows people are starting to work it out and get excited about it. I want there to be much more exploration, much more humour, much more fun, much more diversity within the framework that we've already set out before we start to just change things ad hoc, willy-nilly. So the last thing I've got to share with you tonight is to confess that Ralfy and I are relieved that we've kind of got this decision to just roll with it. If we're going to make changes, give it a year or two first before we make any changes or refinements. Alan Smith is saying, surely if you just listen to everyone's opinion and take all opinions into account, it'll be perfect. Exactly, Alan. It's just the easiest thing to do, you know. Take on board everybody's opinion and just exactly. Jimmy Leg is saying a couple of new hosts would be nice. A little more class. Maybe John Cleese and James May. I don't know if you'll get class from those guys, but you'd certainly get more class than Ralfy and I bring. But I fear, given the way the thing works right now, that you're stuck with us for a couple of years yet, Jimmy. Tweedley's bought me a dram to say, don't let criticism get you. You and the rest of the OSWA lot are doing great stuff. Hopefully, I'll be able to buy you a dram in person in the future. Keep up the great work. You'll figure it out. Thank you very much, Tweedley. Thank you for the dram and the encouragement. I think that there's going to be an opportunity. Stuart at Whiskey Whims and I spoke about maybe appearing on his channel to do an in-depth Ask Me Anything type expose. But for you all that have stayed here till this time at the end, I'm going to let you see behind the scenes here. Thanks for the dram, Tweedley. Thanks to you. I know I'm preaching to my own community here. You hopefully already trust me and believe that I tell the truth and things like that, right? That I'm straight. I try to play it straight. I'm going to do a wee screen share with you here and let you see exactly everything. I'll put on a darker background so that you can see this a wee bit better, so you can focus on it. I'll take away that banner that we don't need anymore. Here's why we're not changing anything. I told you 4,600 responses. Well, I told you a lie. It was 4,598. It makes for a better number, adding on 2 extra. Or I could have just logged in under another 2 YouTube accounts and made it a nice round 4,600. But this is legitimate. This is the number it was when it naturally ended. It's not accepting responses anymore, and this is the back end of the poll. We use Google Forms to do it because it's such a powerful and robust tool. And here is the before we begin. This is the survey. These percentages will match up exactly. It'll look different because we use different colors and different graphics, but the numbers will match up exactly with what you saw on the night. And here's all your names that you add in. I don't need to share that with everybody. And here is the best value category, clearly showing Aaron out there with 1,534 votes. Now look at this. These percentages don't add up to 100 in Google. We have to extrapolate all of this and then work out what the actual percentages are. Why? Well, it's because everyone has 2 votes each. So these don't naturally add up to 100. But you can see the tiny little no vote. 144 no votes, 3.1%, but that isn't. It's because we've got 2 votes each. When you actually extrapolate it out, it's actually just 2% here. And then here's your people's choice. And I can scroll down this forever. This is everybody's people choice that we count. We export it all into a spreadsheet and we count it all out. And it eventually gets to the point that it'll point us to the spreadsheet because it can't list everything here. But this is all your people's choice entries going in. Here is the blend category, showing Thompson Brothers out there in the lead with 1,103 votes. Here is the blended malt category here with 1,395 votes for Campbelltown Loch. Here is Wild Turkey Rare Breed winning clearly the non-malt category. Here is Springbank easily winning best distillery category. Here is Ardnamurchan waltzing with 2,262 votes, the new distillery category. Here is Signatory comfortably, easily winning independent bottler. Here is Wild Turkey Rare Breed, fairly narrowly winning Best World Whiskey. And here is Springbank at the end. This Bunnahabhain and Springbank fight was the most interesting to see. And it was only in the last week or so that it became clear that Springbank was going to take the plaudits. Bunnahabhain cast strength pushed it really far right till the end. And then at the end, here's your survey responses, all of it. So you can, I guess, go back and you can take your screen grabs. You can do what you need to do and see that all the numbers that we portrayed on the night was absolutely accurate to what we actually gathered. And it was, because for us to somehow, we're not motivated in any way to change the numbers. We're here just to tell you what the numbers were. But it would be a hell of a lot of work and something we're not interested in doing to fake them. It is absolutely all above board. And that's my final confession. We're changing none of it for next year. Graham Young's bought me a dram. Cheers, Roy, and you and all the barflies attending the festival. Enjoy the company, and I know you will. See some of you in Limburg next year too. I'm looking forward to that as well. Thanks for the dram, my friend Graham. Cheers. So there we go. These are my confessions for the OSWAs in 2023. These are the whiskies that were brought to my collection because of the OSWAs, because of the voice of the community in 2023. I'm not suggesting that any of you guys go out there and drink them, but I think the James Eadie is a strong, a delicate little decent blend for the money. I think the Wild Turkey Rare Breed is really quite great value for money if you're looking for high ABV bourbon. I think the Blue Spot is bizarrely complex for a 7-year-old whiskey. And I think at the end, this Kilchoman Sanaig is a revelation and balance from a young farm distillery on Islay. You're right. The feedback loop is working and it's not unidirectional. It is genuinely a loop. My friend Benny Vries has just dropped in a wee dram at the end to say, hi, Roy. Thanks for your efforts with the OSWAs. And everything else, remember that it's easy to criticise. It's not easy to come up with serious suggestions for improvements, which makes lopsided criticism hollow to me. It's true, Benny, and I hope that tonight hasn't come across about me being kind of wounded or struggling with all the criticism and things like that. I think what we need to do in the very early years of the OSWAs is establish its honesty, its intent, and its integrity. And from then on forward, people can buy into it and celebrate it a lot more. Like I say, only with time, hopefully people will understand how legitimate it really is. And what I'm finding, as you quite rightly point out, Benny, is that when we do get criticism, we very rarely get better suggestions. We really do. People criticize and then they don't consider the context or how to make it any better. Anyway, Jimmy is saying it's been just like drugstore romantic novel tonight. Sorry, Jimmy. I'll try and work better. How can I improve? Give me feedback. Tell me what's better. Molasses is saying there were not the types of confessions I was expecting. Count me disappointed, wink, wink. I know. I should have used the word share, but it's YouTube. And the other channels that out there are teaching me that occasionally it's okay to go for the bait confessions. I have confessed some things tonight with you. Maybe there will be years that I need to confess more and other years that there's less. This is my confession tonight. 4 bottles of whiskey, a few things that I change, a few things that we are absolutely adamant we are not going to change, and I confess that too. And I am, despite how much work this thing is, looking forward to bringing you the Online Scotch Whisky Awards again in 2024. I think it should evolve. It should get better. It should get more valuable, a proposition for everyone. Julian Rickman saying, Aqvavitae, right, your honesty has never been in doubt ever. Thank you, Julian. That means a lot. And Sandra is saying, do you know which voter was the most accurate? I just don't want to even go there. It would be fascinating to see. Frightening Aqvavitae, says Jimmy Legg. And Mauricio Pacheco is saying, my only feedback is to change the category name from 8 best world whiskey to best non-Scotch whiskey. Do you know what, Mariko? That's probably one of the best suggestions we've had. World whiskey is clumsy. However, if we go back to the context of Scotch whiskey community, then that's the context in which we say world whiskey. I predict if there is something that we change quite quickly in the future, it could be something like that. Thank you very, very much. There is a quiz at the end. Please stay for the quiz at the end tonight. Sometimes there are themes in the quiz at the end. I'm going to leave it with you to decide whether there is a theme or not in tonight's quiz at the end. I think it is a wee bit crunchy, a wee bit tricky. If there's a 10 out of 10 tonight, it will be a fantastic, well-deserved 10 out of 10, really. But hopefully, it's still going to be fun. It's still going to be enjoyable. You'll maybe have your curiosity picked and you'll want to go off and explore something that is inspired from the quiz tonight. Thank you all for joining me. If quizzing isn't your thing, then I thank you for participating tonight. But try it out, especially if you've got a wee bit of whiskey left in a glass. Okay, let's bring up the quiz at the end, everyone. How are we doing for time? There we go. I've not made it for midnight. I've got 6 minutes to do this quiz if I want to kill it by midnight, so it's not going to happen. Spring in the quiz. Wish everybody best of luck and say the pass mark is, of course, always 5 halfway. 5 out of 10 is the pass mark. It's multiple choice. So even if you don't have a clue what the answer is, you've still got a 33% chance of getting it right. Good luck to everybody. For a wee drama in here from Justin Wan saying, bring on the quiz. Cheers, Justin. Thanks to you, my friend. Question 1. Which distillery had its construction significantly halted due to nesting golden eagles? Which distillery had its construction significantly halted due to nesting golden eagles? Was it A, Ardnamurchan, B, Harris, or C, Lochranza? Harris is claiming a 1 out of 1 already. Justin Wan is saying, oh, okay, oh no, I want to take that dram back. He's saying, bring on the quiz. Listen, Justin, if you're struggling a wee bit, follow the very knowledgeable whiskey crowd, but be wary of the banana skins. Willie Buchanan's in tonight as well. Willie, I hope to see you this weekend. Hope you, Colin, and Morag are all doing very well. It'd be good to see you. Mike Molasses is saying, not all of the above. Pedro is saying C, and it's still on the logo. Absolutely. Everybody absolutely kicked out the park. If I grab an Aaron, because my producer of the year, it's right behind me here. And we can still see that they have eagles on the logo to this very day. And that's the reason why. Can you see the wee eagles there above the pot still? And above the kind of loose shape of the island? Famously disrupted, so they adopted it as their logo. Most of you got 1 out of 1. Question 2. Which discontinued blended whiskey label famously included statements such as, we believe it boasts the highest malt content of any blended Scotch whiskey, as well as age with honour? Which discontinued blended whiskey label featured those fantastic statements? Was it A, Black and White, B, Teacher's Highland Cream, or C, Bailey Nickel Jarvie? Regular viewers of the vPub will find this easy, not necessarily because they know the liquid, but because they've heard me banging it on about it in the past. Great stuff. Great stuff. Don't need to dwell on this one, of course. You've picked it out. It's just a wee bit out of reach for me, else I'd reach over and I'd show you the bottle. But it is, of course, the discontinued Bailey Nickel Jarvie. I think Glenmorangie, Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy are missing a trick there. They could revive that brand, make it malt content heavy, put it out there at a reasonable mid-price. It doesn't need to compete with their single malts. Bring back Bailey Nickel Jarvie, make it 46% ABV, make it malt heavy, make it delicious. I bet you could do well. Question 3. Which of the following was previously a blended Scotch whiskey? I'm going to give you 3 options, and I need you to tell me which of these options was previously a blended Scotch whiskey. A, Robert Burns single malt. B, Campbellton Loch. C, McDonald's Glencoe. Make it delicious, says Jimmy Legg. Exactly. Greg's Whiskey Guide, you're doing fine. Only 8 to go, says Benny Fries. Celebrating Greg's 2 out of 2 full house so far. Again, maybe this quiz is going to be a lot easier than I suspected. B and C are current, so A, says Pete Head. Which of the following was previously a blended Scotch whiskey? The banana skin is there, Frank. Robert Burns single malt is a genuine single malt. Robert Burns is also a blend, both brought to us by Isle of Arran distillers. McDonald's Glencoe is a blended malt whiskey, previously a pure malt whiskey, but Campbelltown Loch is a blended malt that was previously a blended Scotch whisky, reinvented in very recent times. A winner in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards this year, of course, but it was previously a blended Scotch whisky. Question 4. What kind of whisky is Burnt Ends? Burnt Ends is a whisky, but I want to ask you, what kind of whisky is it? Lots of you on 3 out of 3. Congratulations, everyone. Well done. Is Burnt Ends A cask strength bourbon? Is Burnt Ends B a 40% Scotch single malt? Or is Burnt Ends C a blend of Tennessee whiskey and peated Scotch single malt? What is Burnt Ends? Pig's Nose, says Tom Elmer. Pig's Nose is a blend as well. Yep. Donald Pasca is saying, wow, I actually know these. He's celebrating it. Fantastic. Craig G is saying distilled chili. Burnt barrel ends, says Roland, Whiskey Radar. Has to have an America in there somewhere, says Jimmy Legg. Burnt ends. Pedro is saying C, going with the barflies, and because it's weird. He's suggesting that C is a blend of Tennessee whiskey and peated Scotch single malt, and yes, absolutely is. For those in Europe, we might not understand the barbecue culture and what burnt ends actually are, but of course they created a whiskey that could try and recreate those flavours, and what they did in order to do that was to take a blend of Tennessee whiskey and peated Scotch single malt to bring this thing called Burnt Ends blended whiskey. Small batch. I've not seen it for sale in the UK, but we can buy it. It's not that expensive. Be very curious. Let's just say I'm waiting for a recommendation. Kyle Taylor is saying, try some pork belly burnt ends and thank me later. Yeah, exactly. I listened when I was in Texas. The barbecue was something to fall into a coma over. It was incredible. Okay, we have question 5, which is a picture question. Very rare event that it's not a Graham Fraser question, but it means that Graham Fraser can participate fully in the quiz tonight. But I'm, of course, going to ask you what we're looking at. It's another Red Chimney event here. What are we looking at? A, Ben Romack. B, Ben Rinnes. Or C, Ben Nevis. Which of those Bens have red chimneys? Which of those Bens have this specific red chimney? Such knowledgeable people. So impressive. Steve Atkins passed it today, and Tweedley is suggesting, as so many of us refer to it, that it is the Springbank of Speyside. You're all absolutely spot on. We're looking clearly at Ben Romack. Well done, everyone. I can see lots and lots of people on full scores at the halfway point. Terrific stuff. Is it going to get a wee bit trickier? Let's roll on. Question 6, with regard to branding, which distillery might you associate with Sir William Gladstone? Who uses Sir William Gladstone in their branding? Is it A, Clynelish? Is it B, Jura? Or is it C, Ardnamurchan? Graham Young is saying I'm staring at my homage to Ben Romack right now. Kyle Taylor got a 5 out of 5 with Ben Romack on the tongue. And Gerben is saying, happy to stay for the quiz. Good to have you in, Gerben. I wonder if you're just a wee bit out of sync. If you're picking this up a few minutes behind. Don't press refresh if you are, because it'll skip you forward to question 6. Okay. With regard to branding, which distillery might you associate with Sir William Gladstone? I suspect this is our first banana skin. With regard to branding, the distillery that is associated is Ardnamurchan. Anybody that's heard of Adelphi's Dancing Man, or the Dancy Man, as they call it. This is William Gladstone, and they use it for Adelphi. They use it for certain products. Adelphi is the parent company, of course, of Ardnamurchan, and William Gladstone was the man who decided that you only needed to pay taxes on whiskey when it was mature, rather than how much filled the barrel. It completely changed the fortunes for so many whiskey producers, and that's a famous celebratory dance, supposedly, of William Gladstone in the 19th century. So there we go. Adelphi and the Dancy Man is Ardnamurchan. Question 7. Another wee banana skin coming up here. Stay steady, folks. Stay steady. Founded in 1988. Bought a distillery in 2002. Released a separate peated brand in 2006. Who am I? This is almost like a mini I Am a Distillery. Some facts. Founded in 1988, bought a distillery in 2002, released a separate peated brand in 2006. Who am I? Am I A, Murray McDavid? Am I B, Signatory Vintage? Or am I C, Angus Dundee? Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying fun question. 5 out of 6. No, 10 out of 10 for my birthday. Too bad. Is this Greg's birthday? Greg's Whiskey Guide? Right, Greg, my friend, I can't buy you a dram or anything, but I tell you what I'll do. I'll raise this glass and I will fill this chat with glasses to say cheers to Greg's Whiskey Guide for his birthday. I'm sure it's your 40th all over again, my friend. Many happy returns to you out in Paris. Happy birthday, Greg. Please, everybody, take a moment to wish Greg a happy birthday. We can't give you full marks for the quiz, but we can raise a glass and celebrate your happy day, my friend. Christina Van Ness has appeared in the vPub. How wonderful to see, Christina. I hope you're keeping very, very well. How's Lance? How's life? How's everything? How are you doing? Just turned his birthday at midnight, Aqvavitae, says Jimmy Legg. Well, we've actually timed it quite well then, haven't we? Brilliant. Happy birthday, Greg. I can tell everybody that founded in 1988, bought a distillery in 2002. The distillery was Eadie, released a separate peated brand in 2006. That was Ballechin or Ballechin, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Founded in 1988 was Signatory Vintage. Signatory Vintage. Murray McDavid did end up buying Bruichladdich, didn't it? And Angus Dundee, well, they ended up with Tom and Tull and then Glencadam, but that was not who I was after. Question 8. Which distilling company has recently released a cast strength expression and called it Drew, which is Sanskrit for meaning wood, tree, or a vessel made of wood? Which distilling company has released Drew, a cast strength expression? Is it A, Piccadilly? Is it B, Indri? Or is it C, Rampur? Which of those distilling companies have released a cast strength expression and called it Drew? I'm pronouncing it Drew. I don't know that it is Drew. It could be Druh. I don't know Sanskrit very well. Rob Halford is still in and playing along. Fantastic. Fantastic. Dogs of No Uncles is in. Good to see you, Colin. He's guessing B. Anthony Dunn is here. Good to see you, Anthony. Mark Chapman is here. Great to see you, Mark. Good to have a wee exchange so that I could work out that it was, or was it? It was you and I that had the discussion about the fact you were sat next to me at the restaurant earlier this year. Is it from Arizona? It's Whiskey with Molly. No, it is not. Drew from Arizona, yeah. Rob Halford is saying he's still packing. Of course, yeah, buddy, of course. Listen, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the weekend, Rob. The banana skin, it's A. Absolutely. Indri is the brand. Rampur is nothing to do with it. And Piccadilly is the distilling company. The banana skin is the fact that a lot of you might have been tempted to answer Indri, but they are not a distilling company. Indri is a brand. The distiller is Piccadilly. That's the banana skin on that one. Dorpass Whiskey is holding on with a 7 out of 8. I'm looking for an 8 out of 8. I'm not seeing it. I'll keep my eyes out looking for it. We might have derailed quite a lot of people already. Question 9, another wee banana skin up there. Which distillery is releasing the Countdown collection in the lead up to its 200th year celebrations? So with 200-year celebrations on the horizon, this distillery has started to release bottles and called them the Countdown collection. They're released, let's say, as premium bottles by ballot. Are we talking about A, Springbank, C, Talisker, or C, Pulteney? A, Springbank, B, Talisker, or C, Pulteney? Which of those is releasing the Countdown collection on the march to their 200th anniversary? Jimmy Legg is suggesting he's heard of this distillery. This is an easier one. I really didn't have to give you the clue that it was being released by ballot. You're all up to speed. You know what's happening. And in 2028, Distillery 1828 will be celebrating its 200th anniversary. Of course, we're speaking about Springbank. All of the questions would have been easier for you to answer tonight if you'd worked out the theme. All 9 questions matched exactly the categories in the OSWAs. So we opened with best value with the Aaron question. We quickly went on to blended, then blended malt, then we went on non-malt, then we went on to distillery with Ben Romack and so on and so forth. And by the time we have to question 9, it's Springbank, okay, for best Scotch malt whiskey. So that was the theme tonight. So how are we doing? Is there anybody managed? I suspect maybe not by the looks of things. Is there any 9 out of 9s? Oh, 8 out of 9 and a protest from Kyle Taylor. Perfect, Kyle. You don't need to protest in the vPub quiz at the end, though. If you think that you deserve a lost question, you can just take it. You can have it. Oh, I'm not seeing any. Unless I'm just not seeing it, I'm not seeing any 9 out of 9s. Fantastic. Okay, let's move on to the inevitable ass hat at the end. And it is an ass hat. More bananas than a monkey enclosure, says Ross. Good to see you, Ross. I hope you're keeping well. Okay, question 10, the ass hat, the ultimate banana skin. The OSWAs are inclusive. So, of the 42 eligible nomination slots in the 2023 OSWAs, how many nominees were within the Scotch category? So, of course, if we remove world whiskies, for example, and we remove the non-eligible slots for Scotch whisky, we're left with a possible 42. If every slot was filled with Scotch whisky, it would be 42 nominations. How many did we actually have in the end? It's a horrible question. It's just just ass-hattery in extreme. Is it around the same number as pounds you would need to purchase a bottle of Johnny Walker Blonde? Is it about the same number as B, Scotch Malt Island distilleries? Or is it about the same number as C, years since the original classic malts were launched? The original classic malts, of course, we're talking about Talisker, I can't even remember them all now, Lagavulin, Glenkinchie, Dalwhinnie, Cragganmore. I've only got one more to remember, and I can't remember what it is. 6 classic malts. Greg is saying, I'll never purchase a bottle of A. Somebody has to buy it, Greg. Somebody has to try it. Somebody has to decide whether it's worthy, but I think we can probably make a pretty educated guess of what it's going to be. I have never heard of JW Blonde, says Justin Wan. Yep, it's brand new wheat and malt blend from Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker Blonde, it's legitimate. How much would you have to pay for a bottle? Kerben Blocker is saying Oban for a classic malt. Thank you, Kerben. I knew that somebody would chime in and fill in the last spot. Yep, for science, Roy. Yeah. Tell you what, we'll chip in for a bottle, half each. I'll PayPal you half of what you need to pay to buy a bottle, Greg, and you can review it, my friend. Johnny Walker Blonde, let's do it. Okay, everybody, I can tell you that the pounds needed to purchase a Johnny Walker Blonde is £28. Scotch malt distilleries on the islands, 21. The answer I was looking for is years since the classic malts were launched, 35. Out of 42 eligible nominations in the 2023 OSWAs, 36 of them actually were filled with Scotch choices, Scotch selections. Now, of course, there's one category that it had to be a minimum of 6 because one category demands that it's Scotch, but the rest is open to anything. So it's still very much Scotch focused. I did say around the same number as the real number was 36. It's been 35 and a half years since the classic malts were released. So C was the answer to that. I suspect nobody has had 10 out of 10 tonight. Let's have a wee look as I explain that I was trying to point out in the awful asshat at the end that the OSWAs do remain inclusive as they can be. They do allow so many other nominations to be put forward. But of course, we're speaking to the Scotch whisky community and they remain very Scotch whisky focused. Steve Atkins is saying with so many bananas, he's only managed a 9 out of 10. Steve, I've lost your chat. 9 out of 10, yes. 9 out of 10 with Hellswood. 9 out of 10 for Tom Elmer. Graham Young, hey, thanks. 9 out of 10. We'll take that all day long. 9 out of 10 for Stephen Marsh. 8 out of 10 for Greg's Whiskey Guide. Pesky Indian Whiskey, 9 out of 10. Helen, she just slipped up at that one. You slipped up at the banana skin. It's Piccadilly that makes it. Andre's the brand. Oh my goodness. It's frustrating for you. Pedro Menes says no 10 out of 10, so no one is dancing with the dancing man. Thanks, Roy, and all the barflies, says Rob. Too slow. It's always nice to see you in with your thanks, my friend Rob. So good to have you in. Great stuff. So good to see Christina Van Nessen as well. Just tremendous. Wonderful stuff, Christina. I hope you're doing well. Well, I need my beauty sleep. I need my energy. I've got a very, very busy weekend, and I cannot wait to raise a glass with you all. Just a fantastic weekend to look forward to in the whiskey calendar. I'll see you tomorrow night, potentially at the Pot Still. There's a kind of informal gathering. If I make it to the Pot Still tomorrow, it will be later in the evening, but there's a good chance I'll see some of you there. If I don't, I'll see you at the festival, Glasgow's Whisky Festival at Hampden Park on Saturday at the first session from 12 till 3:30. Afterwards, we'll be taking buses up to the restaurant. We'll be enjoying a meal together. 100 of us in the same restaurant. Just incredible. We'll go around for some I don't know, what you call them, wind down drams. Joke and Doris and Gaelic would a drink at the door, right? Some nightcaps at the Bon Accord. And then obviously, some of you I'll be welcoming in a hosted session on Sunday and maybe have the opportunity to raise a glass with you and say goodbye to you on Sunday night and Monday. Looking forward to it. I hope you have lots to look forward to too. Next week, if things work out, next week will be the Cask Strength, the annual Cask Strength vPub. But there's still 1 or 2 bottles to secure in order to make that happen. If I get those bottles, we'll do the Cask Strength vPub next week. If not, we'll come up with something else. A couple of drams come in at the end there. Jimmy Legg, sorry about all the ball busting tonight. It was great fun for me. Cheers, my friend. Hilarious chat tonight. Thanks, everyone. Jimmy Legg, never apologise for the ball busting. That's what you're here for, my friend. As long as you're doing the ball busting, nobody else has to, eh? And Mashburn is saying, has bought me a dram as well to say cheers, Roy, and all the barflies. Jimmy Legg and my friend Ross Mashburn, all the best to Jill and all the best to Angie too. Jimmy and Ross, cheers. It's got a big mouthful of hazelnut and peanuts and things. That's the Wild Turkey Rare Breed. Fantastic. Thank you all for joining me again tonight. Lots of whiskey fun ahead. It is whiskey season. I'm looking forward to seeing you very, very soon. And until then, I'll raise this glass, remind you all that you're very dearly loved, and wish you all the very best of health. See you in a week from now. Aqvavitae.